Hello, folks. Welcome back to another Wednesday night Techthusiasm live stream. Tonight we're set up to talk all about Kaleidescape. As you can see, hopefully on the screen right now, I've got the live running Kaleidescape set up here in my home theater. We've got the UI, we've got all the different elements of the platform kind of ready to pull up, explore, answer questions about, and all of that stuff for the next little while here. So we're tonight with us here at Techthusiasm is Kris Deering. Welcome, Kris. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background, your company, and your home theater interests.
Yeah, so my name is Kris Deering. I'm the owner and operator of Deep Dive AV, which is a company I started about 4 years ago. I offer consulting services for consumers and for product makers like Kaleidescape or different companies to help improve or give feedback on products, and then also to help people that are in the home theater market, consumers and stuff, make good decisions on the equipment, as opposed to just talking to a dealer that says, hey, you should buy A because I sell A, or you should buy B because I sell B. So I've been in this industry for a little over 2 decades. I was a writer and reviewer for Secrets of Home Theater and High Fidelity, went on to Home Theater Magazine, and then most recently Sound and Vision Magazine. I've been doing professional calibration for a long time, but just started offering it to consumers about 4 years ago. So I do calibration services for different displays, projectors, flat panels, and everything else. Also do audio calibration. And then I also do a lot of education seminars where dealers or anybody bring me in to basically talk about more recent technologies, what they are, what they do, kind of get past a lot of the PR side of things, and try to deliver, better technical understanding for, dealers to their employees, so that their employees can talk better about different things, or dealers to say their consumers that, get together for events and they say, hey, tonight we're going to talk about a new topic, like what's HDR, what that is, what does it represent, or, things like that. So pretty wide span of different services that I offer, both for consumers and professionals alike. Yeah. So, and then obviously I've been a longtime Kaleidescape user. And that's actually how I met you, was through the Kaleidescape kind of thing back a few years ago. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I know some of the folks that you've helped out with stuff here in Michigan area. They've turned up at some of the meets. Guys, you've helped set up projectors and Lumagens and things for. So pretty awesome. Yeah, so Kris and I, we've been like home theater hobby enthusiast friends here for a few years. Actually, I was making some suggestions to Kaleidescape some time back about who they should engage with and who and where they might want to have some of the product showcase and all that. That led to connecting with Kris, and we kind of bought in around a kind of a similar time frame. I think you've had your system now a handful of years at least, right?
I have. I think right after I met you, I decided to buy in, kind of kicking myself. I had the opportunity to buy in, I think about 6 months earlier. I molded over for a little while. It was right around when I started this business, and I was mulling over buying in, but I just started the business. And, as anybody that's an independent, small business owner knows, especially when it's just you just don't know how that business is going to go. And I didn't know if I wanted to spend that kind of money when I didn't know how well my company would do, or, what the next couple of years would look like. But had I bought into it when I did, it was when they were supporting the ultraviolet format, and my library would have been substantially larger right off the bat than it was when I bought later on, where it started at exactly 0. So,
yeah, I lucked out. I was on the good side of that breakup failure, whatever you want to call it, when UV died. So, yeah, a good bit of the base of my K library is thanks to UV. Unfortunately, we've never had the pleasure of movies anywhere, although we'll see what happens with that in the long run, I think.
Yeah, I know they've talked about it a lot, but I don't know if it's ever going to go anywhere. It's interesting is that, when I was initially, thinking about getting into the Kaleidescape system itself, is a lot of the reasons I hedged on it. And honestly, a lot of the reasons I was somewhat hedging when I finally did go into it were things that there was a lot of misinformation about, that had I known what I know now about the system, I probably would have jumped in earlier.
Mm.
I had actually been talking to Kaleidescape directly, and some of my concerns are the same concerns you see from people all the time, like, hey, I've already got this big library. Do I really want to go into this when I can't bring that library? And obviously at that time, ultraviolet was a reality, but I still had a lot of discs and things like that. And it was, despite bringing this up multiple times in multiple conversations, there was a lot of things that you can do in this ecosystem that I wasn't informed of. In fact, it wasn't until later on with conversations with you that I found out about other avenues you can take to try to kind of incorporate your existing library, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit tonight. That finally was just like, well, if I would have known that the first time, when I was talking to people that should have known these answers, I probably would have got into it then. But hindsight's 2020. So what are you going to do? So
yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I've tried it, because I've tried to make one of the things that I make a good deal of content about be this, because I think there is a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people write it off. Yeah, it's crazy expensive, particularly certain elements of the platform. But I think it's still also, it has some virtues. Nothing's perfect. It has pros and cons, and so we'll break down a whole bunch of that stuff tonight. So in terms of our systems, I've got a two-piece Kaleidescape system. We're looking at the Strato C player here feeding into my JVC projector, shooting up on a 163-inch Seymour AV scope screen here. So I do actually have the UI kind of set to ultra-wide scope mode there. I don't have things zoomed and filling up specifically. We'll talk about some of the integration elements and the finer details of that. But backing up the one player that I have, I've got a 12 terabyte compact Tera, which holds on the order of a couple hundred movies. What everybody's looking at right now is basically my movie wall. This is a selection of the titles that I've chosen to download and keep locally and available for playback. I think I've broken past 1,300 movies in my collection, largely thanks to that that initial UV pump. And a whole bunch of disc to digital and sale purchases and stuff along the way. But Kris, why don't you tell everybody what your system is? You've got quite a few more pieces, I think, than I do.
Yeah, so I have a Strato S, not the C like you. They don't make the S's anymore, but I have a 12 terabyte Strato. So it's basically the same player, but with a 12 terabyte hard drive built into it. Then I have an Alto, which is their Blu-ray player that can be used to either play back Blu-ray movies, but also can be used as a way to essentially bring into your collection again, kind of like what we talked about for your disc collection. So you can insert a disc in, it'll register it, and then you're given options to either play the disc or possibly do a disc to digital type of thing where you could have that disc matched from their digital marketplace at various price points. So I have an Alto in my system as well. And then I have two 24 terabyte Teras. So they're kind of midline Tera now. And I leave most of my content all downloaded as opposed to what you're doing, where you're just kind of keeping the ones that you want to have on for demos or, quick viewing, or maybe the stuff, you're going to watch in the next month or something like that.
Yep.
I can honestly see it going both ways, especially now with the, since you're using a small Tera, you get fast download rates. So, don't really need to keep everything accessible 24 hours a day. So.
Yeah, there are virtues though to doing that. If I could write the check and not sleep on the couch, I'd love to buy an 88 terabyte and load that whole library down, because there are some very, very specific benefits that could be solved with software features and some other improvements, I think. But some merits to actually having all the content locally. But yeah, with 10-minute downloads, it serves us pretty good. So I keep a selection of exactly that, basically stuff that are some kind of perennial favorites, i.e. the whole line of Star Wars movies up there along the top, as well as stuff that's topical. I got a bunch of Christmas movies downloaded right now. We've been rolling through a bunch of Christmas films these last few weeks. New things that come out that I buy that I know we'll watch soon. But you do have to cycle it. But with the 10-minute downloads, at least by and large 10-minute downloads, it makes it pretty accessible. So
yeah,
as folks are rolling in, please hit the like button, sound off in the comments, let us know that you're there, say hello. And if you have questions, please fire them out. Super chats, of course, are always welcome, not required. But please post any questions, feedback, whatever. And if there's some specific element of the Kaleidescape system, the platform, the software, the interface, whatever it might be that you'd like us to show, kind of talk about, dive into, whatever tonight, just go ahead and ask, because I've got the whole thing here ready to go. We've got the UI of the player itself, and off to the side here, I've got the iPad mobile app running on my Mac. We can go to that. We can go to the web page. We can go to the advanced technical IP menu. I've even got my Control 4 home composer pulled up with some of the Kaleidescape programming elements if we want to look at any of that. So hello to Julius, hello to Oprah Winfrey, a couple of the regulars popping in. Awesome to see you guys. And again, so if anybody has questions, hit them up in the comments, and we will take a look and answer and dive into whatever folks have. So just to show that we are looking live here, this is my Control 4 Neo, and if I move around on the remote, we're moving around here on the UI. So I think right off the bat, like one of kind of the defining elements of Kaleidescape is this wall right here, right? It's what you see, it's what you saw at every CEDIA demo booth. It's what you see in every advertisement, magazine, article, promo, marketing material. Like the simplicity, I think, of the Kaleidescape movie wall with that yellow box and the blue little flyout is kind of like their staple branding. No noises, no beeps and boops and bloops when you move around. And one of the things about this that always drives the family nuts is this is one of the smoothest scrolling UIs I think ever. Everybody gets motion sick if running this thing at 60 FPS, scrolling around. There's two modes for this. You can have what I have here, kind of just an alphabetical setting, but there is also the let's change the system settings here, kind of the signature Kaleidescape option. Where is it at? Yeah, here we go. System.
Oh, the dreaded shuffle to bring similar. Ooh.
We got to show it off.
It always looks great in demos and stuff. I know it's a big selling point because it looks so cool when they all move around.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's go. If we go to Moana, I think I have a couple other Pixar titles here. We wait a split second, and there you go, the shuffle. So it saw Moana and it served us up some other Disney items. Here, let's go. Let's pick another one. Let's see if we go to Star Wars. We'll hold on a second. Yeah, we got most of the Star Wars films. So that's the Kaleidescape whiz-bangery there. I don't use this really at all. Do you use this, Kris?
No, again, I remember when Kaleidescape was introduced to the market, I actually went to one of the very first demos of it, and that was, kind of their claim to fame was their shuffling, thing. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's so cool. I can stop and it'll show me other movies like in that genre. It'll show me other movies maybe with that actor or things like that. But the problem is that works pretty good if you have, a fairly small library. And like, in this case, you're only showing your downloaded library. So it might be small enough that it is manageable. But if you have a lot of movies on there and a fairly large, let's say you had your 88 terabyte wish and you had your entire library on there, is the moment that shuffles trying to find anything else, you have no frame of reference. So you're now just going to be randomly going around trying to find it. So I use the alphabetical, which is what you have it in now.
Right.
It still provides, again, if you have a large library like I have, it still can be a little tedious to get through. But it at least makes it where, there's a logic to it with the way they're done alphabetically.
Yeah. The shuffle is neat to show off. And when I have like non-enthusiast friends, we actually just did a Christmas party a couple weeks ago. And I had my team, all my engineers and their spouses and a couple other folks from the office came over, about 20 of us all together. We crammed in here and ran some demos. I ran them all on this, and everybody was really interested. Like, oh, that looks so nice. And, show off the shuffle feature. Everything looks pretty cool, but day-to-day use, it's not the easiest thing to do. I think it's also worth pointing out, and some of the things that folks we comment on quite a bit, giving feedback for, is like some options and whatever in this UI. It's kind of like an infinite scroll, right? Which has kind of a
Yeah.
peacefulness
So
to it, I think, the way, but go ahead.
yeah, so it's for people that aren't familiar with it. As you see scrolls left to right, you're now moving across your collection alphabetically from left to right. From down to up, you're jumping. So you can see, there you jumped from D to H, now to M. So you can quickly get to a letter where you're like, okay, I want, a movie that's a U. He can go down to the T's there and then scroll over to the side to get to U, or he could just infinitely keep going to the left and he'll go through his entire library until it wraps back. But the top and the bottom are just jumping points. He'll eventually get to any of that. So where most UIs like this, where you see from other services, they're pretty commonplace now. They're usually locking the screen that it wraps from left to right and then starts back into the next line, and you're just going from A down, instead of jumping from one set to another, from like F there to K right below it. So instead it would be like Godzilla and Kong on the right, but then the next one where John Wick 2 would be what would be logically after Godzilla and Kong. And I've made requests to Kaleidescape. It'd be nice to see where, they give you the option of maybe, just like they do with the shuffle, give you an option of portraying this any way you want. Say, okay, leave it like this, or make it where it's locked horizontally, so you're only going vertical. There's other little things, like right now with First Man, you have there, they bring that text box up to the left that covers 3 movies to the left of it. I'd love to see where that was optional, where, instead of giving me a synopsis there, I can just click on First Man and then you'd see that same synopsis plus everything else. So you can show them that if you want to just select that. Because it essentially becomes a slightly redundant, but it makes it where you're not seeing those movies. Another downside of this interface is, perfect example is go to your left 2 movies over. So as you can see here, the Fast and the Furious. So, that's part of a series. And I don't know, maybe the Star Wars ones are a better one to show it, how if you have other Fast and Furious movies on here, they might not be logically put together. So here's the Star Wars. They're all sorted in exact, like ultimate alphabetical order. But you can see Rogue One is in a completely different area than the rest of the Star Wars. And it's one of those things, Kaleidescape kind of controls this metadata. So I don't understand why they can't logically put all the Star Wars movies together and then put them in the order that they actually came out, as opposed to being so, like dogmatic about exactly what order they need to be and things like that. So it's again, these are all kind of nitpicky things, but the thing is that, this is a pretty expensive system, and it feels like there's a lot of flexibility not in it. Instead, it feels a little too stringent in how it's done. Where I feel like, for somebody that does coding or whatever for this interface, given the age of this interface, that it's surprising that it's honestly not going through refreshes pretty often, just because, again, the core premise of it and look of it hasn't changed in almost 2 decades.
Yeah, series grouping, ordering, putting all the Star Wars under one cover, and then maybe clicking in there to see just those. There's definitely
there's just a ton of different things that could be done to kind of spruce it up.
In some ways, I don't mind the infinite scroll. Sometimes I feel like, particularly if you have a large version of movies, there's, as a software developer, there's a name for different types of like sorting algorithms and things, and being able to tick left and right for a single movie, but jump up and down in a larger set kind of, I think, maybe lets you dial into something very specific. Like you said, you can get to a letter of the alphabet a little bit faster.
Yep,
right.
I agree.
And then pick in there. But sometimes it would be nice to be able to have a bounded, complete view.
Well, you want to show them the other interface, because a lot of people, this is the only interface they know of, but there is a completely different one, and that's the list view. Now, I believe it's been a while. I don't use this one. I have a lot of clients that do, but this one is truly alphabetical, and then obviously you can sort by all these different side menus. But I believe the remote actually has a page, so you can jump faster than just going left and down and up, if I remember right. I don't use their remote very often, and now they don't even include it with the systems anymore, which is kind of funny. But I believe it had a page button where now you're going full screen, full screen, full screen each time, correct?
Yeah, actually, I've got it. It's working intuitively here. The channel up and down on the
Yeah. So now you're
on the
jumping a
control
full
4.
page at a time. To that. So that makes it where you can go pretty fast. And then obviously, like this screen allows you to sort. So you can go over there to rating PG, click that, and it will sort every movie by rating. So if you were, like, oh, I want to watch something with my kids, but I can only watch something that's, a certain rating. Or
Yep.
you can go over to an actor, that like, hey, I want to see all the movies by George Lucas or all the movies with this actor in them. It'll do that. And that's really cool if if there's something that you want to key in that that tight too. But
Yeah, I
so that's
like
another
this.
popular one.
I like this view a lot. I think so. This has some of that kind of cool software development features. The way that we tend to use this to most is usually by time. If like we get down here, I've
Oh
got a
yeah,
bunch of
yeah,
stuff downloaded. It's like, all right, kids, we've got 90 minutes. So, let's sort by time and pick something that's less than an hour and a half.
yep,
Not too many movies on here, less than an hour and a half right now.
yeah.
But whatever the time might be, and I think it remembers a little bit of when you pick the major sorting category, it kind of jumps between, and you can pick specifically within when there's sub elements, right? I'm choosing within these lists of actors and directors. So
I've always kind of found it a little funny that this menu, if you look at Kaleidescape in general, is rarely ever shown. Like they always love to use their title menu, but I feel
yeah,
like this menu has, like what you said, actually more software development in it than the
yeah,
main menu does.
yep. It's the power
In
menu. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the power menu, but it has like, the ability to sort, do all kinds of things where the other menu is a little more cut and dry. So
the other thing you can do in here, which is pretty neat, I think, is define collections. So some of these come in automatically. New, paused, played. This is just metadata that the system keeps for itself. New being recently added movies. I just bought the most recent Planet of the Apes trilogy, just on sale for $10 a movie, I think it was.
mhm.
And I just recently downloaded a bunch of, bought some of the holiday stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Paused, let you jump right back into movies that you might have been watching before. Most of these are on this list because of like running demos and stuff.
Yep.
Played for the movies we've watched. But you can also make custom playlists or custom collections as well by basically, going to a film and adding to a collection here. And so you can create them, name them as you see fit, all just text boxes there. But right now, the only collection I have on here is Star Wars. And so we can see here you have the option to rename, delete, but it puts all the movies in the list that are in the collection.
Yeah, and this menu actually has a lot of stuff like you can create, playlists, you can create scenes, where could do demos where it pulls from different movies at different times and create, essentially demo loops that you see this a lot at trade shows where they'll have a, demo for trade show X and it'll have like a clip from, 5 or 6 different movies in there. And then it makes it where you can just literally just replay that and stuff like that. And any user can do that. You can create your own playlists, things like that, where just scenes for demo. You could create another one where it'd be just kids movies, so instead of going through there, you just go into kids and all the movies. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility in there. And then if you go back to or actually click on just Phantom Menace there, the other one is like scenes, like where they already have pre-done scenes. That's always a nice thing. They don't do this for every movie. They used to, but now they stopped doing that. Like some movies don't have scenes.
Yeah, I think
But
there's like a studio or two that holds back maybe on their ability to do it.
Yeah, they used to, like, all the studios did, and then now some of the studios don't want that done. I don't really understand the purpose of that, since you can still create any scenes you want. But
Right.
these are just some, like Kaleidescape has that way of, hey, these would be maybe some demo scenes that you'd like and things, and you can edit them and do all kinds of other stuff, or you can create your own at any time, and then it'll add to this list. So
Yeah,
that's
I
another
love.
feature that's nice when you demo it. Yeah, for people, they usually have kind of the more obvious demo scenes in any of this. So
We'll do this. We'll use these a lot as well. When let's say the more assertive members of the household, myself included, are the first ones in the theater, waiting on the slower members of the household that are late for most of the things that they do.
yeah, yeah,
We'll just watch scenes of something for a few minutes while we're sitting down here, kind of waiting for the whole crew to start the actual movie that we want to
yeah.
watch. So it's pretty good being able to jump into like some kind of a favorite. Now I'll point out a couple things, I guess, some couple key elements to this, and some of the areas I think that are areas for improvement. One is I would like to be able to order these. To my knowledge, there's no way to order this list. It's actually doing a little bit better of a job here with Star Wars, putting or keying off of or sorting off of the Roman numerals, maybe in a more intelligent way than the movie wall itself was doing. But still, I'd like to be able to define my own order, because sometimes you might want to have things in an alphabetical order. Some things you want them in a release order, like maybe if it's a Marvel Marvel Cinematic Universe list, or you want your own order, like there's the the right order to watch all the MCU movies in chronological order versus release order. You could make multiple playlists and have, or multiple collections, and have them kind of ordered each way, but there's not specifically a way that I'm aware of to do that. And the other thing is that kind of the bigger weakness of this is it really only lets you collection things that are downloaded. And so that speaks back to the idea that really the best way to use the system is to have the entirety of your library downloaded. It unlocks the ability to do a couple extra cool things from a collection level that you can't do when most of your content, in my case 1,000 movies, are in the cloud. They're not on the server. And so there's ways around that. We've been long asking, I think in the owners threads and in the owners areas, to say, like, show us all our movies on this screen, right? Or give us an option to, right? Not everything has to be an absolute, but there can be a lot of options. Give us some settings to customize things, and let you run the UI and some of its presentation and some of its elements the way that we might want to. But I would love to be able to see the entirety of my library right here, and gray out the ones or something that are not currently downloaded, make a visual indicator kind of so you know what's what. With the 10-minute download, seeing the entire movie wall and being able to click one off to download is easy. But then by virtue of that, I would be able to put all of my movies into collections, and I absolutely would. Like, as a I think part of the element of all of us that have these libraries of things is like curating them and being hands-on with them, and right, it is an experience of ownership and showing the things that we bought and that we like, and back to having discs or whatever it might have been on our shelves. This is the digital equivalent of that.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways so one of the things about Kaleidescape, again, I have it, I like it and stuff, but the more you spend time with it, and little things like this, where, like, curating, having, I like you, am a collector. I had a huge library of discs. I've always had, since the early days, and even before, digital discs were available, large collections of stuff. And the enthusiast market in general tends to be more of the collectors, I would say. And I feel like the more you spend time in the Kaleidescape, UI, or just the market itself, the more you realize that it is not geared toward the enthusiast, because a lot of these things that, again, would make perfect sense to the person that's already had a disc collection on their shelf that was in alphabetical, or segmented based on, like, all my Marvel movies are there, or all my Pixar movies are over there, or things like that, where people that are collectors tend to have ways of like, okay, you know, I'm going to have my collection in a certain way. Like most people don't just randomly like, yeah, next slide on the shelf, and they just throw a movie on there and stuff like that. And this, you know, despite the fact that it does alphabetical, again, it's just alphabetical, which makes it hard for some collections that have names. Like, again, the Fast and the Furious one is great because if you have all the Fast and Furious movies, you realize quickly that like 4 of them are randomly littered throughout. And you're like, well, what do I know I have this movie, but what is it called? Is it, you know, it's like, you know, and you're like, now you got to figure out what their nomenclature is instead of just, you know, putting it in there or whatever. Or, you know, if you're somebody that's getting into movies and you're like, oh, okay, you know, oh, here's the Star Wars ones. I imagine they put them in order from left to right. I'll just play this one and the next one. You know what I mean? And it doesn't work like that. So yeah, there's just a lot of little niggles like that become kind of frustrating when you look at it. And then, yeah, the whole fact that you can't see, like you know, you said you have like 4,000 titles and stuff, and it's like you have a small collection here, you know, you're like, oh, you know, do I have that as a downloaded or whatever? You know, I heard different things like, well, you know, how do we handle that? Because the cover art is very specific and things like that. And I mean, I looked at something as simple as like what you have right there with 1917, like, see how it creates that little yellow box. Like if you had your whole library on there, maybe if it's downloaded, that box is green, but if it's not downloaded, it's red. You know, something that would be so simple that, you know, once somebody knows that, it's like, oh, you know, like there's my whole library. Oh yeah, this one's not downloaded. And then if you clicked it, you know, it went to the next screen, it would say, you know, download now, you know, or something like that. You know, again, like to me, this stuff is so, you know, there's simple ways to get around this. And again, you know, if it was a lower priced product or something like that, then, you know, it wouldn't be as big of a deal to me to, you know, for the little things like that. But when you're getting to essentially what is a top tier product in terms of its price point compared to anything on the market that's like it, you know, those kind of limitations start to be like, you know, it's like, well, you know, do I want to make excuses for it because it does other stuff that I like? Or, you know, do we just want to point out the realities of like, you know, this interface just, it works, it looks great. I mean, obviously it looks really pretty. It's really fluid and stuff like that. But the more time you spend in it, the more you start to realize how it has its own built-in limitations that I feel like wouldn't take hardly any effort at all to kind of, you know, make it even that much better.
Right.
And I feel like the more you're innovating your product, even with simple stuff like that, the more people perceive it as a better value as they own it, because they're like, oh, okay, you know, look at, they're constantly doing things to try to make this a better and better and better product.
Yeah. As a software developer, my biased answer is a extreme yes to that. New features.
Yeah. I mean, you look at any kind of, you know, any kind of product like my phone, you know, it's like, how often do you get, you know, updates where they just little things, but people think that like, oh yeah, I'm buying this and I'm constantly, you know, it's innovating itself all the time, as opposed to, could you imagine where they said that like, okay, you bought iPhone 90, now you got to buy 91 if you want that icon, you know what I mean? Where it's like, dear Lord, you know, are you kidding me? You know, like just to get that, you know, it's so, you know, that's something that I think should be addressed.
Yeah, we'll see what's ahead. I'm hopeful maybe 2023 will be the year of some advancement. So if we look at the card here a little bit, you know, so this is what you get as a matter of selecting a movie, hitting enter on it. We got some text, some controls. We can play the movie, have access to those scenes. Again, really great. And I think they do, the movies that have the scenes, I think they really do a great job of picking them. I guess in most cases, if there's been some really standout part of a movie that I felt should have been a scene, I don't know that I've ever been let down that it hasn't been a scene.
Agree.
The Batman Batmobile chase, you know, all of the super regular home theater demo showcase parts of the movies.
Another nice one that's similar to scenes is when you go to any movie that's like a musical, especially like any kind of Disney one, like if you went to Moana or something, instead of scenes, it goes to the songs. So, you know, that's a nice one for, you know, Frozen probably has the same thing where, Now it'll have, where you can jump, so if you have kids that like, oh, I just want to go to that scene where they sing that song, you can do that. And some of those are actually really nice demo material as well.
Yep.
Most animated productions look pretty good, and the song
Right.
scenes tend to be kind of the standouts. So
yeah, you want to play it in the background, right? If you have one of these in your living room or whatever, just play all songs,
exactly.
and you guys essentially have the album with the video. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Some trailers are there, extras. So I guess it's maybe we're talking about extras a little bit. I think extras is they're around the platform. A decent amount of content has extras. Sometimes it takes a little while for newer releases to get them. I'd say a lot of cases the movie will hit and the extras might lag a little bit. I think this is another area of the platform kind of ripe for some improvement. One of the big challenges, however, with extras is that they download with the HD variant of a movie. Yeah. And so you cannot, if a movie has them, in this case specifically, it's telling us here, right, Frozen 2, there are extras for this movie available for download. And if I go over here, I think this will take me to the store. Yeah. So this is kind of like the store tab of the movie. And we can see, right, there's some music videos, there's some special features. So when movies do get extras, deleted scenes, you generally get the same kind of extra package, more or less, that you find either on a disc release or like iTunes might have in their extra sections. But again, you have to download the HD movie kind of package to get the extras.
Yeah, and that feels like it's a waste. To me, it should all just be, I want this version of the movie, and yes or no, I want the extras. And they shouldn't be like, well, if you want the extras, you have to download this. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the Kaleidescape system in general, the premium that you're paying for at the end of the day is storage. It really is about the hardware and the amount of storage you have, and there's a finite amount of it. So the more things that I have to download that are, not needed or anything, or taking up space that I could be using for other things. So, it literally is the premium of this system, and it's expensive. Storage is insanely expensive in Kaleidescape. So wasting it on a version of a movie I don't want doesn't make sense.
It's harsh.
And so I just feel like they should be packages. It should be like, you want this version of the movie. Do you want to download the extras? Yes. The extras are its own, file, so
we'll cross our fingers for 2023 for that. Yeah, that's especially limiting for me with one 12 terabyte Tera. I'm definitely not wasting space. I've got room for 200 movies. If I were to download not only the 4K HDR copy, but the HD copy, now I'm probably talking not quite half, because the 4K download is going to be bigger than the HD download. By the time maybe you take the size of the extras and you put it together with the HD copy, maybe you are coming close in some cases to duplicating the storage space requirement.
The other thing is, this is an area where, again, like I'm constantly I've thought about this so many times, where innovation could come into play. So let's say I'm a new Kaleidescape owner. I just bought a new system. My dealer's going to install it or whatever. I'm there when they install it. What prevents somebody, like, again, with Kaleidescape, again, these are high priced items. This isn't like something where you're buying a budget system. So they kind of like, you kind of get what you paid for. Like, you paid a lot for this. Why not have something when you're setting up originally that walks you through and says, welcome to Kaleidescape. Your account is this. Okay. Let's talk about your preferences. What is your preference when you buy a new movie? Do you want to download all versions? Do you want to download this version, this version, this version? Would you also like to always download the extras, where you could set a preference so that, because I see this constantly on like forums where guys like, hey, I bought this movie and it downloaded all 4 versions of the movie. And now your storage is gone like that. And now you got to figure out, how do I undo this? Where little things like that could make it where, again, like, I don't want it to download all the extras all the time. But if I tell it, hey, my default is always to download the HDR version and extras. And then, you can always go back in and say, I've watched these extras, delete. Or I could just say, hey, always download this version and do this, where instead you're hunting package. Because you see people like that all the time. Like, I have a lot of clients that have projection systems that I go out and do calibrations for, setups for and stuff. and a lot of them have older projectors and things like that don't do very good with HDR. And one of the things about Kaleidescape that a lot of people don't know about is a large percentage of their library is available in 4K, but without the HDR side of it. So that side really works well with a lot of displays, but people don't even know, like, well, how do I access that? I thought those were the same thing, and things like that. Or I think just a little bit of innovation in the beginning to tell the client those things, it would, you know what I mean? It would make it where the interface would be a lot easier to use. The download, all those things would be easier, and make it a little less convoluted with those kind of things.
Yep, I agree. So one other thing to point out with the extras too is that when you do get the extras as well, essentially it's a text list. And I find sometimes that's not always the clearest indicator of like what a given extra might be. Not necessarily Kaleidescape's fault, but I think like the studios, when they title their extras, if they kind of give them a cute name, right? It's not like making of, it's got some other thing and you don't know necessarily what that might be. I find, generally speaking, that when we watch extras, and my kids usually do, we usually like to watch some of the makings of some of the production type extras that come about some of the films. Although sometimes I think they ask that just because they don't want to go to bed yet. They just want to keep watching something else. But
I know that one.
It's a good trick.
It is.
But I just usually go to iTunes. So we'll watch the movie on Kaleidescape, and then I'll jump over to iTunes where they have like paragraph descriptions and thumbnails or whatever about the extras.
Yeah, they usually have thumbnails that'll show you, like, oh, there's this and this, and if you want to watch that extra or whatever, it kind of gives you, like, I think iTunes usually, if you go to a movie, it brings you almost to like what looks like the home menu on a Blu-ray, where it'll say like, movie, it'll have some music playing, and then it'll say extras, and you go to the extras, and they always had like the little, it almost looks like a preview screen that tells you, what's in there and stuff like that. So it's a nice little system that they have there.
Yeah. So there's the collections. We looked at that, and just to make sure, there was a question that came in a little after, can you put movies into groups? So yes, so in the Kaleidescape lingo, a group is a collection. And on the device here, on the actual system itself, items that you have downloaded, you can put into collections, you can customize them, name them. They can be, many to one. A single film can be added to multiple collections, and there's a separate part of the UI to access those. And then under more options, if you've made custom scenes, you can remove them here, or even remove some of the built-in ones, which I wouldn't really recommend. Whoops, let me go back in here. And then of course the option to delete, that doesn't mean delete from my account. That just means delete from the local storage. And I have the ability to trigger a download of this movie again from my account, either on the device itself from the store area, or from the mobile app or the web page or whatever it might be. There were some questions, I think, or some comments related to disc to digital. There are a couple more, say, more advanced options that could show up in the other. If, for example, you had done something for doing disc to digital, what they call cataloging. Kris mentioned he had that auto player. So if he had a movie on the Blu-ray, not the 4K Blu-ray, but the HD Blu-ray, you could put it into the Alto. The Alto could read it and say, hey, this is movie XYZ. Would you like to catalog it? And then that kind of gives Kaleidescape in your account the recognition that, hey, you are a confirmed authorized owner of this film. And if there is like a conversion offer, a digital offer associated with that movie, they would give it to you and you might be able to buy it. In most cases at some kind of a discount. How deep that discount is depends on the studio. Not all studios treat the program equally.
Which is another frustrating aspect, just because the differences can be just so insanely glaring between them. That's another thing, like, that you'll see a lot with the Kaleidescape is that, well, the studios dictate, and I imagine that's true to a point. But the thing is if I go to any other kind of movie system, Vudu, Apple, discs or whatever, I see a lot more consistency, I would say, in pricing comparatively. So it makes it really frustrating when some studios just feel like, it's like you look at prices and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. And you'll even have it where the studios within their own studio doesn't make any sense, where you're like, if you just sorted movies out by the studio and then you see their pricing across that same studio and you're like, it's almost like you're like, did somebody just miss this or something,
Yeah,
so
yeah. We post a lot on the users on the Kscape owners forum, which is thankfully a place that the company does engage with us. And when things are wrong, usually they'll get picked up and corrected. But sometimes something will get upgraded and the offer price will be high, and the question will get asked, like, is this actually right? Maybe don't buy it yet. Let's make sure.
yeah.
Is it really $17 or should it be $4.92 or whatever the price might be? Let me kick up playback of something here. We'll hit a pause as soon as the actual playback comes up. Now, any delay, this is all real time here. Any delay is not a result of the Kaleidescape. That movie's playing right now. I guarantee it. This is the projector, the JVC NX7. There we go. The color filter, the HDR movie. So the color filter is moving into place. It's resyncing from 60 Hertz to 24 and all that. So, so here's what you get basically from the playback overlay. We can see the pause up there in the corner, goes to play, pause. And I normally do have this connected with my Control 4 automation system. So one of the great things about the platform is the integration capabilities that it has. So normally speaking, when I play pause, the Strato will tell Control 4, hey, dim the lights according to the macro that I have set, turn the lights on. There's a cue when you're watching a movie and you hit the credits that I have my lights slowly kind of come back up. That's a really cool feature. Every time we have friends or somebody over, especially for the first time we're watching a movie and that happens, it just makes it gives you that commercial kind of cinema flair.
There's another thing with that. Again, like Kaleidescape thinks about, some things that others don't think about. So if you were to hit play and then pause again, now hit pause. So the nice thing about Kaleidescape, so I have a similar setup to you, a scope screen with a JVC. I use a Lumagen video processor, so I don't change my lens zoom like you do. It's all automatic. The aspects ratio will always fill or do whatever. But if you notice that their pause is always in the frame, as opposed to being out, even though this is a letterbox movie, so they could technically have the pause at the top of what would be the normal 16:9 screen. But if you're watching something in any aspect ratio, they make it where anything that's in it stays in it. Another nice one is instead of hitting pause, so let's say you're watching this movie and somebody needs a bathroom break, instead of hitting pause, you could hit intermission, which is kind of nice because instead of just having this frame up there, it brings up like the poster and stuff like that. And that's something that's nice, so that, it's like, what I mean? It's like a little more elegant pause than just random frame where you catch somebody like, or something,
so that's, I triggered the intermission button off the app.
And then I think with intermission, the same kind of thing is they have different stuff where an intermission could control like your lighting and do all these other things. There's a lot of integration aspects with this that you can do that are kind of built into the platform. Obviously, you could do a lot of these things with control systems even without that integration, but they make it fairly easy.
Yeah, the cues, everything's right in the programming, basically programming cues of Control 4. There's 24, 30 different trigger moments, essentially, that you can add macros and custom actions and stuff to in the system. So we have an info screen. This has actually been updated a bit in one of the more recent versions of the software. I think that came out this fall. So this screen is a little more, a little more descriptive than it was before. And I hope it's a sign. I hope this is a sign of some direction. A little pinhole.
I still think it's interesting that they don't add like they don't have like the audio. I love it how they have stuff that's like just seemingly random piece, not so much in this, but in the main screen, that's like seemingly random information that like, I'm like, they have that, but they don't have what are the audio tracks or things like that, where I'm like, I'd love to be in the room when they're like, well, what do you think we should add and not add? And like, who makes these decisions?
So I think this, I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful.
Yeah.
This is the window into what could be coming in 2023. But I thought it was interesting that like this flyover went black, and the text is a little more, it's not bold, thick, a little thinner. It feels, it's got a different little bit of a presentation, and I wonder, it's got more of the feel, I think, of the mobile app, of like the web page, and some of the other design language that they have in the platform. But we can see the name of the movie, the rating, the year, we got the HDR tag, some information, scene 4 of 6, and the scene name. We've got information in there. I think that means we're 17 seconds into the scene, and it's got 2 minutes and 57 seconds left to go. If I page across here, we've got audio selection options. So by default, it picked the Dolby Atmos track. But if I wanted to flip to some of these other ones, I could. Director's commentary. So the commentary is part of the audio streams. It's not part of the extras. So I guess that's a bonus if you wanted, at least the movies that have them, if you wanted to watch a commentary. I don't think then you have to download the extras. You can choose the commentaries. Subtitle enablement. And notice too here, right? I've got my system. We're in essentially, a US IP address set for English speaking language. Nice thing. I don't have Spanish and German, all the other languages. So that at least I'm not wasting space with a bunch of audio tracks that I probably wouldn't play.
But this is still an area where, again, like that initial thing, it would be nice if you had the ability to just say, only download the one track, because again, space is your premium. And it's like, okay, how much file size do these really take up? And it's like, well, it only might be this much, but now you're spreading that over 100, 200, 400 movies, Yeah. So again, like little things like that are just.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. With the Dolby Atmos track, I don't.
You're never going to use the other ones, and you have how many there? 4 more, and that's just this movie. So
true. Yep. So subtitles are there. Of course, you can enable them. If a movie has forced titles, it will do that. I think it's also worth pointing out for the scope screen use and all of that stuff. If there is a positional subtitle that's not burned in or part of the video image, the player will put it in the video frame, just like the pause indicator up there in the corner. So you never have to worry with your Kaleidescape about subtitles falling off the bottom of your scope screen or missing out on something like that. So we can jump between scenes. If we had them again, we could jump between extras. And then here's where you get into the UIs to be able to like make your own scenes. So you would navigate to the part of the movie that says, okay, this is the start of the scene that I want to make. You would play for a little while, then pop back into the info screen. You could basically designate the end of the scene, give it a name, and then it'll show up kind of in your list there. And then we've got a jump to chapter number. And of course, you get all the regular kind of like transport-based navigation that you would expect: fast forward, rewind, chapter skips, and all of that. There's 3 levels of fast forward. And I'll take this moment to go over one of my peeves, something I've been asking for a long while. So if I fast forward through the movie, I don't want to do that too long because I don't want to make it look like I was playing, but notice there was a time code that popped up in the upper right hand corner, which gave us an indication, I think, of how far we are into the movie, but there's no indication of how close we are to the end. And you got all these Marvel movies, you got all these, the popular thing, maybe a little bit less so, but for a while there, it feels like, the thing to do is to throw an extra 5 seconds of video content somewhere near the end of your credits, right? Or embedded in the credits of your movie. I can't say how many times, like, all right, we hit the start of the credits, let's fast forward and look for a scene. And we just blow right past the little 5-second end cap that we wanted to watch. And so now we're back out to the menu because we hit the end of the video stream, and then we got to go back in. And then because we finished it, it's marked as watched, playback starting back from the beginning. So we fast forward all the way to the end, get back to the credits, and go slow. I would love some kind of a feature facilitating, like, acknowledging that, hey, something's coming. One of the virtues of the platform is the fact that of all the curation, right, all of the metadata, the details, the movie information, and all the things that they recognize and keep and make available and use in the player. I'd love to get like a little pop-up that says, hey, don't go yet. there's something else here, stick around, or, okay, that indicator doesn't come and you're safe, that I don't need, movies nowadays have like 15 minutes of credits. So I would like to be able to just press
I'd
stop.
go a step further. I mean, if you're going to do a curated, like, again, like all these movies are supposedly hand curated because they go through each movie for compression.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, if I have, Thor 6 just came out and we found out no, they don't have one, they don't have two, they have three different things in the end credits, because they're doing that now. Like they have the one, then they have the other, then there's another. So you're like, is that the only one? Is like, why not just make them chapters? So like the movie credits start, I click fast forward, boom, it goes right to that next scene, then boom to the next one, and then boom to the next one. So then you're not having to sit there and visually fast forward. Again, like, why? I never understand, if you have the opportunity to take burden off of the end user, why not take it? Especially if it probably takes them 2 seconds to put a marker for a chapter on there. Like, we can't do that. The time it'll take. Yeah, right. I bet you it takes like 2 seconds. So those would be kind of things that I'd like to see too.
Options to delight the movie watching experience. All right, let's grab a couple of questions that came in here. So Travis, a little bit ago, asking entry cost to get in the ecosystem. So, Kris, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, give me 1 second here, and I'll actually bring up the latest price sheet. I think I have it here, and I can tell you.
Your smallest system for sure is going to be a Strato C and a compact Tera 6 terabyte. Like Kris mentioned, the Strato S, the standalone player storage model was discontinued last year. It's been
last year, I think.
Last year, yeah. So now the entire product line is based on C players and Teras of different sizes and form factors, depending on how much you want to store.
Yeah, so in the past it was, I don't remember it. So you could get the Strato S, and it would either have a built-in 6 terabyte or 12 terabyte thing, and there was a price point for that. Now, like you said, you have to buy a Strato C. So a Strato C's retail price is $39.95. It was, I think, a little bit more before, and then they lowered the price now, so it's a little bit lower. So that's just a player. So there, honestly, you can't do anything with that. If you buy that, you can't plug a drive into it and watch stuff from a USB stick that you have downloaded, anything. It literally can do nothing other than play from some kind of designated Kaleidescape storage option. So the lowest option now is what's called the Tera movie server, which is the same size, and it starts at 6 terabytes. So the MSRP on that is $49.95. So if we just do some quick math, $49.95 plus $39.95 is your point of entry now is $8,990, which I want to say is pretty close to $1,000, if not more, than what a Strato S 6 terabyte costs. So I know when Jeremy and I first met and we were talking to Kaleidescape, the question is, how do we expand our market? And the first thing that anybody ever asks me with Kaleidescape is, or it talks about is the cost of it, and I think that is the barrier that is pretty much there for anybody. And unfortunately, they went up in price, not down in price. So so if you want to get into this, I mean, they do run occasional sales and things like that, but right now MSRP, you're looking at $9,000 for just walking in the door, and that's with not a single movie, nothing. That is just a player and the storage attached to it.
Yeah. If you go to the other end, the 88 terabyte Tera, the largest unit, I want to say.
Yeah. So Teras, and so I talked earlier, a Strato player is a player. It cannot do anything but play movies that are stored on a server device. So their function is to play back that and obviously generate any of the video that you see, the menus, blah, 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 the interface. The Teras are strictly a storage device. You cannot buy a Tera and the Tera plays anything. So a Tera is just literally dumb storage. Think of it as a RAID or anything like that. It serves no purpose other than to store. There's no playback capability or anything like that. So again, the 6 terabyte of storage starts at $49.95 MSRP. There's a 12 terabyte storage that's $79.95. So if you wanted to double that, you're looking at $3,000 more. Then there's the 22 terabyte compact, which is the highest of the compact one. That's the same size as the Strato C. So 22 terabytes is $10,995. Then we get into the bigger servers like what I have. Now they discontinued the 24 terabyte server like I have, which was more of their full size, full rack 1U server size. And now they went from the 22 terabyte compact to the 48 terabyte of the normal servers. So 48 terabytes is $18,000. I'm just going to round it because it's $17,995. So I'm just going to call it $18,000.
Yep.
So 48 terabytes is $18,000. And then their new big enchilada is the 88 terabyte, which comes in at a very attractive $26,000. So if you wanted to play a movie and have, full storage like, you would need for your system, you're looking at $4,000 for the player plus, $26,000. So you'd be all in at $30,000 to get their biggest Terra server plus that. So
I think my library would fit on 188, and it wouldn't be long before I'd be knocking on the door of another one.
Yeah, I don't remember how many they say that holds. So yeah.
Another comment here, Gopinath Makala, recent owner of K, welcome to the club. Find it difficult to get around the disc to digital. What are the possibilities of simply simplifying the process? So yeah, this really
gets brought up a lot.
Yeah, the ways to go about this, there are options. Again, and this is something else that could be made better with software features and policies. Gopinath specifically talking here about Vudu. If folks aren't aware, in the Vudu mobile app, you actually can scan the UPC code of like your Blu-ray disc case essentially, and be given a digital offer to pay a certain amount, a reduced amount, whatever, and obtain a digital right to that movie at whatever quality in your Vudu account. And there's limitations to that. They geo-lock it, so fundamentally, like you can't go to Best Buy and scan away. Vudu knows your address, so they expect the phone to be in the vicinity of your address when it's scanning a box like that. And then there's historically too, I don't know if some of these policies have changed. The last time that I did it though, or looked into it, that was part of it. The other part of it is you were limited to like 100 movies a year. So there was a scope, limited scope aspect to it as well. If K did something like that, that would really be phenomenal. Right now, the only way to do this to digital is to have an old last generation discontinued piece of hardware. There's no contemporary way to buy a drive and connect it to a computer, or even connect it to like a Strato or a Terra via a USB port or something. You have to use an Alto, or you have to use a Cinema 1 Generation 2 fundamentally to be able to have that device on your account, put the disc in, catalog it, and then be given kind of the digital offer. I had an Alto for a while. I bought it specifically to migrate over a collection of physical media into the system earlier on in the life, and I did it before they lowered all the prices. So I got the benefit.
I did a
of
lot
UV.
Before that as well, yeah. But at least you got UV, so I don't feel sorry for you.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. Yeah, so what we're talking about is about 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, might even be 3 now.
Yeah, 3 now. There was a policy change, and the digital offer price to do the disc digital conversion was just like slashed significantly. And with that came a reduction in the digital offers as well. So if you have rights to an HD level of a movie in your account, and then that movie gets upgraded to 4K, by and large, you get a digital offer at a reduced price in most cases, many cases, to make the conversion. But the pricing is different per studio and different for all that. But you have to have those Altos, and so those Altos are hard to find. They're few and far between. If you've got a large physical media library that you wanted to convert, personally, you would have to have one of those players. They come up on eBay every once in a while. They come up on Kscape Owners Forum. But the big problem is they're old units. And in a lot of cases, they'll come up for sale and they'll be specifically advertised like, trouble with the disk tray. They all use like an older, maybe like less long-term reliable slot loading tray versus or slot loading drive versus like an actual ejectable tray that you could set a disk in. And so many years out now from being end of life, there's reliability concerns. And of course, if you're buying the thing to catalog discs, the one thing you don't want to buy is an Alto that has a problem reading discs. Defeats kind of the whole purpose of the thing. But some dealers will have units that they kind of hold in reserve for, when they make a sale or help a customer get in that way. But
and I feel like that even was only just something that people started talking about when they did that disc to digital reduction. Like, again, as we talked about earlier, when I got into this system, I asked people at Kaleidescape repeated times, like, I have a large disk library, is there ways to get into, like bring that in? And nobody mentioned, oh yeah, if you buy this other device, you could put your discs in and get a disc to digital. Like, it was honestly you had told me you bought an Alto. And I was like, well, why'd you do that? And then you told me about it and I was just like, oh, so I ended up getting one. And I put some movies on there initially and stuff, because initially there wasn't that much of a discount. It was like, $2-3 or whatever, but it added up. But then eventually, they dropped it where it went down where it was extremely enticing. And then, you started seeing dealers doing this thing that like, hey, we'll loan you an Alto for a week so that you can do that and stuff. And again, it still becomes a bit tedious, but there was other things even with that. Like when I put in my Alto, when you do the disc to digital, like I just got it for that. I wasn't going to use it as a disc player, but I was told that if you're going to have an Alto, you have to have a CoStar. Yep. And so I bought the license for a CoStar, only to find out that you only need a CoStar if you're actually playing content from the disk drive itself, not content that's stored on the Alto. So I found out I spent money that I didn't need on that. And then I also found that if you archive them, if you say, you just stick a disc in and it says, your digital goes to what's called digital offers. And it'll say, you can have the HD version of this for X amount, or SD version, or 4K version if there's a 4K version. And so I'd be like, let's say it's a movie that's only available in HD. And I say, yep, I want the HD version. It costs, I don't know, $5. And I say, yep. And then it says, okay, we've added this to your thing. And now it downloads it. And I take the disc out and, like put it in my garage in a box or whatever. What I ended up doing, honestly, was I had them in a box in my garage. And then I gave a lot of them to my brother. But then I found out later that just because you did that doesn't mean that like now that HD movie is available in 4K in their market. It won't show that you have a disc to digital, and disc to digital prices are different than say a digital upgrade price. So I'll find out that like, okay, if I want a digital upgrade of this movie, it's $12. But if I still had the disc, it's $5.
Right.
So because they have a thing where you can say catalog the disc. And it just keeps a marker in there saying that, yep, you have the disc. I was naive enough to think that I put in a disc and I did the offer. So they already know I had the disc because I did a disc to digital offer. Yeah. But nope, you have to go in and you have to not only do the disc to digital, but then you have to go down and say, catalog the disc, where I would think that like, well, you already know I have the disc. Wouldn't you automatically catalog it? Yeah. So again, there's little things like this that just, are like the little tedium of it. I think that they actually changed that recently, where if you do anything with the disc, it automatically marks it as something where you had the disc. But when I did it, when I went through and archived mine, because I went through pretty much when they did the price drop, I ended up going through and pretty much if there was a disc on my shelf that I was like, if I can justify leaving it on the shelf, I can justify the $2 to $4 or whatever for most of them to just go ahead and put them into my Kaleidescape and just basically move away from discs entirely. Right. So,
yeah, I think in the latter half of this year, there were some improvements there. And I think also some process improvements, I guess, to kind of make sure that depending on all the different elements or ways that a movie could be being offered to you at a discount, the platform will kind of look at the different ways and basically offer you the best price, so you don't end up buying something, either on the web or in the app or something at a higher price than you might have been able to get or qualified for otherwise. It's Robert, two eyes there, Peel. Very disappointed that K pulled out of Australia. So we're both customers of Kaleidescape here in the US, which is really their prime market. I don't think it's quite the same experience or at very many places around the world because of licensing rights, and the store is very different, even to Canada or the UK and other places as well. I've read of folks using VPNs and things to, access the US store and buy things in the US store and play them overseas, but I won't give any specific recommendation or guidance.
That's the reality of almost any kind of media, whether it's disc streaming or whatever. Different services in different countries are going to offer different things. There's stuff that's available in the UK and Canada and the Kaleidescape store that's not available in the US that I'd love to see. But, like the problem is movies are handled by different releasing agents. So, a movie might be released here in the United States by Paramount, but 20th Century Fox owns the rights to it in another country. So to do with the way movies are licensed. So,
yep. All right, 2 more questions, then we'll jump through some more of the UI. Randman says, if you have 2 or more compact Terra servers, does the movie wall show all movies on all servers? Yes. So within like one, there's a term for it in the platform. They call it not a zone, but
the system's essentially a Unity-based system. Like, it doesn't matter how many teras. Like, you'll never see anything unless you go into your setup menu where it shows like you have tera, and there might be like settings in there, and it might show you how much storage is left in one. But as far as the interface goes and watching movies, you'll never even know. Like, at the end of the day, it just shows you the movies and you play it. There's nothing that says this is playing from Tera 1 or Tera 2 or whatever. The interface is just, once you link all this stuff together, it doesn't get lost in any of the minutia. It's just, you have the movie and I'll play it as long as it's connected. The player is connected onto a network that has those storage devices or whatever. So there's none of this like, oh, what's on Tera 1 versus Tera 2. It's your library is all incorporating. Like, again, in my system, I have a Strato with a hard drive on it, an Alto with a hard drive on it, and 2 teras. And, I have movies across all 4 of those. And I wouldn't know that unless I just happen to look on the, my system setup screen where it shows me how much storage is left on each one. But as far as the playback experience, I just pick a movie and it plays. It doesn't matter where it comes from. There's no advantage to having it on this versus that. There's no differences in speed of how fast it loads, how fast it starts playing, the quality, none of that. So,
yeah, you just need all the devices on the same, basically,
on the same network,
gigabit wired network. Yep, you're
good
to go. And one more, Dallas Bolin asks, would you be able to watch movies in 3D? So,
nope.
No 3D.
Yeah, and this is probably a pretty common complaint with the Kaleidescape system. Kaleidescape is kind of advertised as the best, audio video system there is. I mean, they really make it a point. If you go to their main page, we are the premier video system, and stuff like that. But there's a lot of things they don't do. So 3D being one of them, there is no 3D playback. And that feels like an oversight. There is a market. There's people that like 3D. And again, this is a market that, again, as it becomes harder, because 3D has kind of gone away a little bit. So, it might be hard. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm trying to find this disc and the only place I can get it is on eBay for $120, where if Kaleidescape had a market that had 3D titles, there is no like, hey, we ran out of discs. You know what I mean? So there would still be a pretty robust market for that if they wanted that version. They also don't offer some of the more advanced things for 4K. So all of the movies are in 4K HDR, which is the basic HDR10 format. There's no HDR10 plus support, and there's also no Dolby Vision support. So once again, as the premier system, when you're again talking about a $9,000 entry point for just the hardware alone, then you get in and then you start seeing some of these limitations that, other devices may not have. Again, like you can praise a lot of the stuff and try not to talk about the shortcomings, but at the end of the day, people ask me all the time, oh, it doesn't do Dolby Vision. Oh, that seems kind of odd, things like that. So, and I think this is a hardware limitation, and it might go away. Like if they finally put out new players, it's probably something that has to do with the chipset that they use or something. We might start to see that. And
Yeah, I
then
think
there's
so.
also, the same thing with immersive audio where, there's things that don't have it and do have it that don't have it or do have it on other formats. So
Yeah. HDR10 Plus to me would be more interesting than Dolby Vision for someday when, given the new JVC and Zs support it.
yeah, on the projection side, it would make sense. But, in the flat panel world, I think
Yeah, that's where you
having
want.
one or both or Dolby Vision would make a lot more sense. It's
Yes,
just way more supported. So,
for
and
sure.
again, like if you look at comparable systems like Voodoo and Apple TV, which are getting, probably similar base files because they're the mezzanine file, they are offering it in those kind of formats and stuff. So again, it's a comparable. It's a digital marketplace. Other digital marketplaces are offering this. So
Yep. Yeah. Speaking of those hard to find discs, there's the whatever is that $300 or maybe $100.
for Gravity, yeah.
The Gravity Diamond Lux Dolby Atmos version. That's
Yeah,
just
and
downloaded.
that's a lot of the reason I got it into it earlier. Like on that same page was like Edge of Tomorrow or whatever, where it was available in 4K, HDR and Kaleidescape for years before it was available on disc that just came out just recently and stuff. And that's probably one of the main draws to this system for me, to be honest, is the fact that on disc, the reality is we're just seeing less and less discs coming out in stores. If I go to my local Best Buy, it used to be literally like rows and rows of movies. Now it's, one little kiosk and it's like, or an end cap at a Walmart or something, compared to what it was even 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
But 4K movies tend to be more on disc. The big budget Hollywood, summer movies, there's always exceptions for like big catalog stuff. But, I've always been a film fan and I like movies of all genres and stuff. And started noticing early on that, a lot of streaming services like iTunes and Vudu and things, like almost all movies that were coming out, a large majority were in 4K HDR for, just your normal dramas, your normal comedies, your normal whatever. And you weren't seeing that on disc. And then, Kaleidescape, you'll start to see that where pretty much if there's a movie available in 4K, it doesn't matter, if it's a big blockbuster or just, a small independent film, it'll be on that format where you might never see that on a disc. So.
Speaking of Best Buy, I just went to my local Best Buy. Like maybe it's telling about the future of retail. I didn't go there to buy anything. I went there to take old stuff that I wanted to recycle because they do electronics recycling. But my local store was like completely rebuilt since the last time I'd been there, and I couldn't find physical media anymore. They actually had some much improved high-end home theater space. They kind of like took out the Magnolia, and there was a Kaleidescape driven projection room
Oh,
in
wow.
the back. I was pretty impressed by that. Yeah. But yeah, no physical.
I haven't been in
media
a Best Buy in a
anymore.
while. I don't really go into electronic stores anymore that often. So personally, it's just, but I think the last time I went in there, I remember the local Best Buy had gone down from a pretty significant amount of stuff to like they had like one, and then they had a couple end caps by their register that might have like the latest day and date title or something on there.
Yep.
So
yeah, it was pretty wild though. It was like completely rebuilt, like completely redone. Speaking of like the title counts too, we just as a customer we get communications from Kaleidescape. They do a monthly newsletter, and the December 2022 newsletter just came out. One of the items of the newsletter news talked about unleashing 4K, and they gave the counts here: over 1,700 movies in 4K, and over 700 4K movies not available on disc. That number now on the Kscape Owners Forum. Props to the guys that I don't know what they do. They run the tracker or whatever, but we got a couple of guys on the Owners Forum that like add up these differences, what's on disc and what's on K and what's not on the other, and keep running threads of the totals. And then another contributor that has some kind of something that runs and posts like every price change. It's awesome because not every sale or price change is really kind of reflected in the sales of the store, but the owners in the know, we get the whole list of what went up and what went down. But at 700 seemed like a lot to me. I feel like that's a jump from even the totals that were being calculated on the owners forum. I think was feeling like we were more at like the 500 or 600 movie count, and in their
Yeah, I was
newsletter
gonna
they're
say like
claiming
high
7.
400s, low 500s.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
and I mean they're pretty much adding them, every day to every other day.
yeah,
Um, that's another thing with this marketplace is that, movies are added constantly. You still get some of the
yeah,
stuff that's based on, whatever kind of stuff that they have that are limitations or whatever. Like, some movies will only come out on Tuesday or whatever, but you'll
hmm,
also see like almost every day, one or two movies being added and things like
yeah,
that, or an upgrade came through or something, like a new version of the movie came out and stuff like that. And if you have an account with them and you have a movie, you'll usually get a pop-up that says there's a new version of that movie available if you want to upgrade. So if
hmm,
something in your library got, upgraded to 4K or whatever, it'll give you the option to say, hey, maybe you get a discount or something like that. So
yeah. I love that stuff. And I think that's been a real like shining point of the system, particularly like I feel like really this last year where every day amongst the things that I open, every morning or whatever, I grab my phone and look at a couple of things. I always open the app, um, and I go to the movie page because I'm curious what little black boxes are going to be at the top that will pop up into, who knows what movie, might have joined the store. And I feel like not on the weekends per se, but almost every weekday something shows up,
it does. Yeah.
or at least every other, and so in more than one or two, some days, so, and it'll be 4K updates to catalog titles or new movies or additions to the store and stuff that aren't there. So I think they've really done a fantastic job building up, and I guess that's where the 1700, 700 kind of counts come from. Um, so, well, here's the store view on device. So I kind of did it without saying it, but we've got the movies kind of section of the UI here, and then we can get to the movie store. We can page through a whole bunch of stuff, new releases. So you might see some movies, little brand new movies like Violent Night is there. This just popped up the other day. A Christmas Story Christmas. This just launched on it was exclusive to HBO Max, I
Hmm.
think, for streaming. Popped up here. Full 4K Dolby Atmos, lossless quality. We just watched the original Christmas Story with our kids for the first time about a week or so ago. So I want to, in the Christmas season, I'll probably do that one. But a lot of bidding, grouping, and so on. But I think a couple interesting things to point out. This is something new that we just got, essentially in the platform, literally within the last, I think it was last week. The season passes. So I feel like in about maybe the last month and a half, there seemed to be a little bit more of a rush and focus with bundles and sales, and a little more attention being put on TV series, episodic content, and
Yeah.
then this landed, and so we have the new Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, season 1, full Kaleidescape level quality, lossless Dolby Atmos, and all that is available here. Game of Thrones, the whole original Game of Thrones. I think all the seasons are in 4K, whatever they're. But this concept of what they're calling the season pass just popped up, and this Yellowstone season 5 is the first instance, which is really what everybody's already used to. Like you buy a show that's currently airing with iTunes, right? You buy this as it's happening, and the new you pay a season price, and the new episodes appear, and you get them. But this is a new edition, bringing something like that into Kaleidescape. This is a new edition. So, one time here season purchase, and I believe the way that it's built, like when you make the season pass buy, not only will, of course, you get access to the new episode, I think they auto download them, I suspect, or I would hope they
Yeah,
do.
I think so. I think like it's the day after or something, and it auto downloads to your system based on what you picked for the thing. Yeah, I've always wondered, the TV section of the Kaleidescape marketplace. I look at it and I'm always like, well, do I want to buy TV shows? I've always felt like their TV stuff tends to be a little expensive. And now they're starting to do like more bundles, and I'm seeing a lot
Hmm.
more sales on them. But the other thing is again, I look at the Kaleidescape system as storage is the premium, and do I
Yeah.
want to put a whole TV show on there and stuff like
Yeah.
that? So I am always a little more reluctant to get into that. And I wonder, like lately, they've been doing more sales. now they're doing the season pass, if they're trying to kind of get more people into that infrastructure.
Hmm.
Where like most of these shows, I feel like almost all TV shows eventually come out on disc, at least in HD quality. And you'll see some pretty aggressive sales on discs. And TV shows are also aren't something that I tend to rewatch a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like if there's something I really want to have, I can always wait for it to go on sale on some like end of the year sale on disc and get the complete series for what,
Hmm.
might be the cost of one season on Kaleidescape, and I'm not hogging up storage.
Yeah.
But I mean, but
Yeah.
it is nice that they're starting to, I feel like, do a little bit more to try to, kind of bring more to, a little bit more sales and a little more features. We're starting to see more 4K TV shows on
Yes.
there and
Yep.
bundles and some good sales on them and things like that. So, again, it's just showing that, they're trying to do something.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, things are happening. Yeah, and even like iTunes, I'm surprised we've gone so long in iTunes without 4K TV series. Like something is wrong technically, I think, in the iTunes infrastructure. I swear, that doesn't let them make things binned as TV series available for purchase. And I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but the old holiday classics just all got upgraded to 4K. Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph, and all that. Kaleidescape got those upgrades, I think, just within the last few days or so, or last week as well. But I owned all those in a TV series package on iTunes. But Apple didn't upgrade the TV series version of those to 4K. They put them in the movie store as individual titles to make them 4K. So I think there's like, like a, I don't know, it's an engineering or a technical, some kind of a policy problem with regards to 4K TV shows like on iTunes. But we're getting more of that here. And they specifically said, I guess, to quote them, we're excited to announce that select next day television series are now available with the Kaleidescape Season Pass. New Season Pass functionality allows you to pre-purchase an entire TV season before it airs or while it's currently airing, and each new episode will download as it's available. And they say, well, we will be launching more next month. This is from the email, same newsletter that came out today. We will be launching more next month when hit series return from hiatus. So be sure to check the Kaleidescape Movie Store for the latest additions to Season Pass. So, yeah. And one thing to note, I guess, here, this is the My Movie section of the store. And so this
it'll
is
show
what
all of it.
this shows all of it. So you
Yeah.
can get to it on the device. The problem is you can't put this. So this I like, actually. And I wish that the library page mimicked the My Movies store page.
Yeah,
a
look at
little
it.
bit more.
Shows like the in that
Yeah.
little box, it shows you the audio. It gives you
Yeah.
so much more information.
I want it. I
Yeah,
can't tell you how many times
I've
Mike.
told them the same thing where I'm like, your movie store interface on the player is
Yeah.
better than the movie interface on the player.
Yes. Yes. So we're saying it again. Mike,
Yes.
all you folks over there, please come on, bring this
Anybody
stuff
from
over.
Kaleidescape, like, come on.
We
Yeah.
want it. We want it. So notice the check boxes, and there you go, right? The check boxes. That's the stuff that I own. Easy to show me that. Put a little checkbox on the thing that's downloaded, right, versus the thing that's not. But in the movie store, in any case, it's mostly the same information, a little bit formatted, but there's more iconography. You get the Common Sense Media ratings here. You get the Rotten Tomatoes scores, stuff like that. You can do some of the same things, right? You can play the trailer, choose to download. I just bought, this movie isn't so great, I guess. Wow, was that the reviewer versus the audience score for Morbius, 15 versus 71.
Yeah, and it's again, like, nice that they do that. I love that they show you the Common Sense age rating.
Yes. Yep.
Like, that's something that I like to see. They show you the actual audio track that it's Atmos. Again,
Yep.
it's actually hard to find that in your normal collection.
Yep.
I mean, to me, it's a little, little tighter, interface. And again, it's already on the player, but but it's not in. Yeah, it's just,
yeah. All you got to do, guys, just bring this one over to
we're
the
not
other
asking
section.
a lot. You're already doing it on another screen.
Yep. And I think this will shuffle too. It's going to prove me wrong. Huh.
I
Oh, I swore this shuffle.
I don't. I thought it did too, but I don't remember. It's been. I don't go into the store thing
Yeah.
ever because I just use the. Like I have a daily thing where I just check their store online. I like their store interface on their main web page.
Yep.
So I usually use that.
Yeah, we're not getting.
No.
Well, in any case, I think I wonder if something's awry here because notice too, it's doing this. This is what is this home?
That's home, back, and
There we go. Oh, so they must have changed this. It used to auto shuffle.
oh,
Maybe.
so now it's only when you want it to.
Yeah, interesting. So how was I doing that? Yeah, this is different. I swear this is different.
And see that their little left side pop up even is better than the pop up on the other one. Like just copy that,
Yeah.
again.
So where does this go? Oh, it goes back. Oh, interesting. We're learning as we go. Yeah.
And see,
Yeah.
like again, like look at how the innovation. I mean, this wasn't there before. This makes a little bit more sense. So imagine if these were the same things you were seeing
Yes.
on the main movie thing. It would make sense to do that, but it's pigeonholed into an area that I imagine most people don't use. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I have ever bought a movie from this page, from the store built into the player. I always either go to the app or I go
Yeah.
to the web page because I just find that interface, easier to use.
Yeah. Because pushing left here, it doesn't take us into those options like it does
Right.
in the store.
Right.
Yeah. We want it. We want it. Bring it over. So there's
Well, the
some
nice thing
parental
about that
controls.
is like because they gave you the ability to just push shuffle, like think about that in the other menu now. So
Yeah.
now it's alphabetical, but if you wanted to show off the shuffle button, you click it, it would do it. And then they had the button where you would go back to what you were in before.
Yeah.
So now you're not going like, well, now how do I find anything? You're just
Yep.
right back to square one. Like again, like this is the kind of innovation that I'd like to see in the main
Yes.
user interface as opposed to these kind of things. Like
Yeah.
if anything, it should have been in there first.
Exactly. Yep.
But I mean, we don't know if that'll ever actually even happen.
We'll see. Now I'm delighted. I like it. I like it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Have you used? I've never actually used parental control, so I can't comment on.
No, never used it.
Yeah. And then systems, we've got some status. Probably got to be careful what I might show here.
Yeah, it just shows how many movies you have that are on the player, if you have any downloads, and then how much more storage you have available given, what you have on there. So, in this case, you could download 26 more, 40 something more or 200 more.
And then right now, nothing's being downloaded. If there was, it would show in the list here. And then last one, some settings.
These are the basic settings, yeah.
Yeah, just basic player settings. The advanced technical stuff, you go to the IP address of the system and you can pull quite a bit more in. Is there anything in here that you
there's a couple things here. So you can, again, like this is kind of where they do kind of do some things. Like I like that one right there. You can tell it to always default to the original language or always default to English.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that don't like subtitles, you could do it that way. You can basically tell it how you want to do these things, the first time, so it doesn't do it. And then I think then go down, and then in advanced, there's the subtitle repositioning. So you can say you always want them in the image or only reposition it if there's a masking system involved. So like if you have a certain type of masking system that only masks like maybe for one aspect, you wouldn't want it to always do the subtitle repositioning. And so like, if you're somebody with a screen that only has a fixed aspect of like only 16:9 or scope or only scope and, what I mean? Like the one-way masks, you wouldn't want it to, you might not always want it to put the subtitles down there. So if you're using masking cues, you could, where if you always want it in there, you can tell it. And then there's the shuffling versus alphabetical. And then, yeah, most of the other stuff is in the IP menu. If you want to, since we're on the topic, we can go.
Yeah, let me pull this up on the side here. We are coming up on a half an hour. We still got pretty much a good crew of folks with us. You could stay around.
It's got to be more than a half an hour. We started at 5,
no,
right?
Or sorry, hour and a half. We're at the hour and a half.
I was going to say, I think we talked longer than a half hour.
Time's flying. Time flies when we're having fun. All right. Well, do we want to? What should we look at? Let's do that since we're talking about the player experience. Let me just make sure.
Go to the IP menu.
Yep, that I'm not on anything that has. Any privileged information. Anyway, I don't think there really is.
I can't think of anything in that menu. There's nothing like credit card information or anything.
All right, so let me do this. I'm going to share this screen. Add this to the stream. Okay, and then boom, boom, boom. So here we are. Basically, web browser IP address of this case, it's actually of the Terra. But we can see a couple things here. We have some options for movies, history, and settings, and we'll jump through these. This is the one it takes you to by default, which is the components page of settings. We can see I've got one server. There's my Terra. Here, maybe I can zoom this in a little bit. My 112 terabyte Terra, we see some information like how much storage is remaining, hard drive temperature. We can change the intensity of the light on the front of the unit. I just set mine to 5. Doesn't really matter. They're off in a rack back there anyway. General tab for deactivating if you're going to sell or transfer. Interesting here, right? Software version number, KOS 10.13.4. Updated November 28th, not that long ago since the last update. There are no patch notes. I would very, 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 very much love to see something right here, or a patch note indicator or history, something like that. When we ask, or sometimes if something of interest pops up in a new software version, they do go to Kscape Owners Forum, and they'll share some of the finer details with us there. We can see some history here. This is the download history, right? So telling, which movie did we download? Where was the download triggered from? Obviously, you tend to use the store. That's the web page, basically, the Kaleidescape store. What type of quality did we download in? And then, if you're curious about the download rates, here they are. Basically, 750 megabits, a couple down here towards 600 megabit, some up closer to 800. There was a comment in one of my videos that somebody was saying as they were just about filling up their Terra, and as they were approaching the last bit of storage, they were noticing some slowdown in the download speed. And given I've only got space for 26 more movies out of a total capacity of close to 200, right? It's getting pretty close to full. And I think I can say that, not that long ago, I think I was getting speeds more closer or up, here's 868, 859. And
yeah,
so
I'm looking at mine right now, to kind of compare. So I'm seeing the same thing. I have all my Terras hard routed directly to my main router. So, there's nothing, and I have, gigabit internet. So like today, yesterday. So there was, again, right now there's sales going on. I bought the Secret of Nim HD movie. Took 24 minutes at 120 megabits per second. But then couple days before that, I got the Shrek 2. They updated that to 4K HDR, and that completed in 11 minutes at 500. But then couple days before that, I bought the Fablemans in 4K HDR, and that took an hour. But then I have some here, that took just a few minutes. So it always seems like it's different. I'm seeing, 500, 600, 700, but then I see some that are, 120 and stuff. And I have no idea what is causing, the difference. As I go farther down, in October and September, everything was in the 500s to 600s. And then, if I look at the last month, there's, 120, 500, 190, 550, 530, 680, 174, and stuff. And I have no idea,
I wonder
So
if some of those really slow outliers are a function of routing, because your Terras would get the faster speeds, but if the system decided to maybe like take an HD download and put it on the Alto, that could be a lot
So when
slower.
I just had the Strato and the Alto, that's the way it used to do. But since I've got the Terras in there, the bigger Terras, everything just goes to the Terras.
Okay,
Like
it
I don't remember
prioritizes.
the
Got
last
it.
time anything was put on
Hmm.
that. But that would be an interesting one that if they added a tab to your history there. So
Yeah.
for people that have different systems like mine, where there's a mix of different I could
Yes.
load to all the different, that it said where it was loaded to.
Yeah, that would be great. One more column
Yeah,
in this
so it said,
table.
like Terra, Strato,
Yep.
Alto, Terra 2, Terra 1. Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah, that'd be great. There you go, Kaleidescape. And then we have here a page of movies, basically. So this is the list of what is downloaded right now. And note, right, I can make collections here. There's my Star Wars collection that we were showing off actually on the device. If I click it, we can see the movies here. You know what? I wonder if this is why. They appeared in this sort order. Actually, let's try a little experiment. So if I change the
see if you
sort
can
order,
resort them there.
yeah, and then we come back. No.
There's probably a guy from Kaleidescape that's going to be watching this later going, yeah, all you got to do is this. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we boned
Some
it.
engineer in the back room like, oh, all you got to do is this. If only they knew.
Yeah. Well, hey, come on the stream and tell us.
Exactly.
But this is so you can do this stuff here, but again, this is only for movies that are currently downloaded. But you can curate, you can manage some things, see what you have on your system and all of that. But I think the main kind of technical one that we wanted to get into was if we go to the settings link here of the actual player, now we get into some real enthusiast technicals. So if we look at video capabilities and status, right, we're getting some detailed HDMI status info. I'm not playing anything right now.
Yeah, so the interesting thing here is that it actually is a status of your whole setup. So HDMI is a two-way communication thing. So it's looking at what you're connected to. So depending on what your TV is capable of, the supported HDMI features will change.
Hmm.
So if you were connected to like an old 1080p display, it would not show that, it supports this,
Yep.
and this. So it's nice in that it'll show you what your system is capable of. So that's a nice way. Like sometimes I have clients that say, hey, I've got a Kaleidescape and for some reason it's not letting me do this. You can go to this page and it's a way of troubleshooting. It's saying, well, based on this, it's saying you can't do that. So there's something downstream of the player limiting that. Is it a cable? Is it a setting in the AVR that you're using that might have like some kind of limiter? Like the Denon Marantz ones have that thing where if you have 4K sources, you have to go in and enable that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, their HDMI ports are saying, I can't do 4K. And they're doing that because some older devices, if you have 4K enabled, they won't play because of HDCP issues and all these other things. So this is a nice way to troubleshoot when you're having, like little quibbles with your system to see if there's a problem or not.
So I did go ahead and start playback of a movie there and refresh this so we can see basically the players telling us, right, what the media is and what the actual output is. I love this. I wish this was on the device. I would kill for a, there's like the basic info when that tab popped up, we've got that basic info section, but then, it'd be great to have like a details area and you could see stuff like this, but we get, we're seeing resolution. It's what it should be. Frame rate is what it should be. YUV 420 is what the media was encoded at, but the player is doing the color expansion there, or decompression to YUV 444. We got 10-bit HDR BT 2020 and these little kind of color indicators, right? Dark blue saying, yeah, you're getting what it is. No adjustment, no tweaking, or is it scaling it up? Is it scaling it down? Is there a problem, etc. So that's there on the video kind of side of things, and you can tweak some of this as well. So if I expand this out, we have options, allow display mode changes or minimize them, right? What resolutions do you want to set? Refresh rates and so on.
Since we're here, I can kind of go over some of these because some of these, the defaults aren't really what I'd recommend.
Hmm.
So if you went to that select video output behavior, you can see the default when you click is minimize display mode changes. What that means is that no matter what you play, it will output in the highest, the strata will scale to whatever it detects your display at. So if you have a 4K display, minimize display mode means that it will scale that content to 4K, whether or not you want it to or not. And it also frame rate converts to 60p. And they're doing that so that it minimizes any kind of resync on the output display. So it's basically whatever the menu is set to is what that is. So allow display mode changes means that it will allow it to do, I think, frame rate change. So allow
Mm-hmm.
display mode changes means that it will do 24p or 60p. So like whatever the frame rate is of it, it'll now output it as that. So you would see a resync. And then allow display mode changes, use external scaler means it will also do the original resolution. So it's kind of like the Apple TV, frame rate match, range
Mm-hmm.
match. In this case, it's resolution match and range or rate match is kind of what that does. So, like on your display, I would recommend that was in, use external scaler.
That,
And then the next one is, what kind of display you have, and it shows you what each one of those does. That graphic actually is pretty nice. It'll show you what the playback would be for that. So whether it's anamorphic, letterbox. So like in your case, I would use the letterbox 235 letterbox. And you can see that that's going to make it where the on-screen display is in scope, the movies are in scope, but then 16:9 will be inside. So there's different things you can do depending on what you want your system to do, and stuff like that. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, the native display. Sorry, the one, and you can see like there it would be pillar boxing 16:9, but that one will not be. So
yeah, for zooming out. Yeah, I've been playing with this a little bit because we mostly watch movies down here. In most cases, they're wider than 16:9. So I've been leaving it more in the 235 mode and leaving the projector kind of already or more so in the zoom state, because waiting for all the stuff to align itself when you start a movie can kind of be awkwardly sitting in the dark for a little while. So I want to verify this. So I usually run this, which basically means you're saying that I'm getting the Kaleidescape is outputting native 24 or 23.976,
yep.
but I've been okay letting it always output 4K. But
Okay.
you with
So
this though, you would opt to let
all
the
I'm saying
JVC
is that
scale.
now you're just changing where if you're watching anything that's HD or lower, the Kaleidescape is doing the scaling as opposed to, in your case, say the JVC.
Yeah.
So you could always try it both ways and see which one, like, do you like their scaling? Do you think JVC scales it better? Things like that.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on, you're basically just telling it what device is going to do what.
Got it.
So, and then on the OSD refresh rate, this was actually something that came about. Some of this stuff actually came about from some of my meetings with them. Like originally it was always in 60p, but the problem with 60p is that, it's the hardest signal. 4K 60, some displays struggle with that because of bandwidth limitations, cable limitations, things like that. But if you make it in 24p, it now makes it where you're not getting a restart if you go from the menu to a movie, because they're both in 24p. So now you don't get the resync, but the menu probably will not look as smooth as it did before. So you're trading off one thing, like what annoys you more, that the menu doesn't look smooth, or if you have a projector or a display that takes a long time to resync.
Yeah, we can show this. So I just flipped this to prefer 24p. Now,
you'll see it'll stagger a little bit more and stuff.
Yeah.
It looks a little more jarring. But now when you select a movie, especially if it's always outputting 4K, it won't resync. Now, it may resync because you're going to HDR.
Yes.
Again, so there's always the little, you have to make sure that everything is matching, so.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one of the next things. One of the next things to do is to maybe make the UI, give an option to have the UI, even though the UI is STR or SDR,
or have it in HDR or
yeah,
whatever.
past the SD, make an HDR UI, and then if you really wanted to, you could go, scope based HDR 24p UI, and you'd have, boom, instant instant playback on a projector without waiting for anything.
Right. Then the next one down is the output color space. Before, I think it would always do. Oh, no, that's the limitation. So this was built because for a while there were different devices that had limitations on what they could do for HDMI bandwidth. So some of the early Sony projectors only had the 13.5 gigabits. And if they didn't have this on there, it would create problems where it just wouldn't work right because HDMI is expecting a certain amount of output rate. So this is basically just to be more compatible with certain displays and things like that. And they probably talk about that a little bit there. It also does limit the color spaces though. So like you can't do, 444 at, this or that, or you can't do 422 at this or that unless you have that bandwidth. So if you had like an old AVR that you were doing your switching through, you might have to use this to just limit, so you don't get a thing that just says not compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So this should be more stuff that the people that are installing it, would hopefully know that and things like that.
Yep.
And
then you can define color sampling, and then this one is
and so before color sampling wasn't in there, they just put everything out at 444. And then, there's different, again, there's different caveats for that. Like some displays work better with one input versus another, things like that. So 444 is limited to 10-bit, 422 is 12-bit. So, there's all kinds of things. It's probably a little bit more past the technical scope of most people, but I'm just glad that they did that. And then the content type metadata has to do with like, there's different graphic flags that you could do with HDMI. So whether or not you put that in there, the end device could see that as something, that's like, oh, I'm putting out a graphic versus video. So I do a lot of development work with Lumagen. And one of the things that we did for Kaleidescape is if you have an input with a Kaleidescape in there, if you set that graphics flag to transmit, all it does is says that it's a graphic. And the only time they transmit that is when they're on the cover art display and stuff like that. So, Lumagen has the ability to auto detect the aspect ratio. And before, they recently updated that where it's pretty much instantaneous. It happens within one frame. So 1/24 of a second, where before it used to take a little while because they had to kind of like look at it. And if you look at the menus in the Kaleidescape, they don't always have like a defined edge. So they said, hey, if you see graphics flag, you can tell it use this graphic, use this aspect ratio. So as soon as it saw that graphics flag, knowing that you went back to that menu, it would instantly go to that aspect. So you wouldn't have to wait for it to detect it. It knows that, hey, I want it to be this all the time. So that was like a little trick that they did to make that faster and things like that. So other devices might be able to use that flag for something. So
yeah, and audio is pretty similar setup here to video. Of course, again, just for audio. Nothing's being output right now, so there's no live information. But we're getting flagged that the current system supports everything. We get the kind of this visual indicator, what's currently active and what's not, and then similar kind of audio setting choices. Right? Do you want bitstream or something less than that? And then you can. These are overrides essentially, right? So you can say if you want certain types of audio codecs to either go or don't go through certain outputs, you can manage all of that. And then there are 2 HDMI ports, one for video and audio and one for audio only, that can be managed as well. And then the rest is pretty basic. Network control settings for DHCP or static, some control options, and then they've added some specific integration with Lutron, I think within the maybe that was last year as well. I think maybe anything to comment on with regards to the web page. I think the web page and the mobile app I love the way they look and the way they operate in some of the pieces and elements here. I look forward to more of the design language of these things coming on the player.
Yeah. So, like I always go right to movies, browse all. And then the nice thing is it keeps it keeps your, so any of those little filters at the top, once you click them, it'll always keep those. So like I always have unowned, and then for video quality, I select like HD or higher so that it sorts that. But if you like, if you're somebody that's like, I'm only buying movies if they're in 4K or better, you could just say UHD or higher. So then you're only seeing movies. And then I sort by availability. So that's when it came to the store.
Yep.
And it gives me an idea of like, okay, what's come up. So like today, we got in UHD or higher, there's 3 new movies that came out: Moulin Rouge, The Hustle, and Call Me by Your Name. But it just gives me a way to sort things quicker that way, and kind of eliminate the stuff that I just don't really care about. But you can also sort by popularity, blah, blah, blah. And then if you go into the collections, that's kind of nice because you can just go right to a studio. And this is where I always find those price disparities. Like I'll go to, like, say Paramount, and then I'll say video quality, UHD or higher. And then I'll start looking at the pricing on this, and I'll be like, why is this movie $19.99 and then this one's $39.99, or and things like that, where I start scratching my head over $19.99, $34.99. I mean, that's a huge increase in price for some random old movie, and stuff, so that I'm like, okay, does that mean that there's a price issue here? Because why is that movie $15 more than that movie, and things like that. That again becomes one of the more frustrating things with it. Like here, just kind of scrolling around randomly, I see that their 4K HDR goes from all the way down from $14.99 all the way up to, $30 something dollars. And it's like, I don't get it.
And here's some of those digital offers. Shrek 2, Puss in Boots. I had the HD copies of these movies, and I've got the offer to upgrade for basically $4.92.
Yeah, but I'm sure you also have other movies from Paramount in there that the upgrade offers, probably something completely different. And, again, that's kind of the frustration of consistency, because you're looking at it going like, well, I'd really like to buy that, but am I going to be an idiot and buy this, and a week later it's going to be $4.99 instead of, this price and stuff like that? Because, even if you have the money to invest into this kind of ecosystem, that doesn't mean that you're stupid with money, where you're just like, oh, well, I'll just throw money at it because, I have money.
Yeah. I cleaned this list out just a few weeks ago with a pretty big purchase.
With that big sale.
Yeah. But I left these for, 17, 20, 16, and 27.94. Almost Famous is, I think, one of the big,
which is weird because I bought Almost Famous on a as an upgrade as well, and I think mine was only like the other ones where it was less than $10. So I don't know.
Yeah, it depends.
And again, why that's offered, is a disc? Is it something you bought before from the store? And again, like the inconsistency in pricing is very frustrating for the platform. Like that's probably, again, in more of the day-to-day thing, one of the things that I find frustrating.
Yeah, I didn't get the digital offer for Pulp Fiction. It's here, right? You own this in Blu-ray quality, but I have to buy it at $24.99 because the rights change, I think, is ultimately what the determination was, is the relisting of this in 4K.
Which is odd because it's owned by Paramount now, and I know that I did a disc to digital on that based on, I think, Lionsgate back in the day, because that's who used to own the rights to that movie, or Miramax or something. Like I had the original Blu-ray release of that, and so my upgrade price was $4.99. Like like when I see something like that, I'm like, done.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And there's wish list capability in here, pretty nice. So you can get to your wish list. Updates, which are awesome. So the technical aspect of the feature, if a movie is downloaded to one of your servers and they did a remix of it, they improved the audio video quality, or they added something to it, it shows up in here, and you can trigger, basically you get the indication to say, hey, there's a better version of this now, would you like to re-download it? It comes through there. And again, you can kind of like see your downloads, manage things on the system, and all that through here. So pretty cool. I cracked me up when I saw this. Have you ever watched these with your kids? The Dog Who Saved. There's like 9 of these movies.
No,
they are horrible. They're like horrible. and we watched every single one of them last Christmas. My kids ate them up. it's funny,
Nice.
like the actors that pop up in these movies as well. Yeah. And so this screen here, this is the actual mobile app. So I love this thing. I run this on my iPhone. We should note there are 2 apps. There's one they call Second Screen, which is kind of more to interface with the movies that are currently downloaded to your system. So if you're sitting in your theater, you got your tablet or whatever, instead of manipulating your kind of collection on the screen overhead, you could pass the iPhone, pass the iPad around, and pick something to watch that way. This app, though, I think is really the more important one, or important to me anyway, which is the whole Kaleidescape experience. So the store, being able to access and purchase content in here. This is a Mac. I've got a MacBook Pro, M1 Pro 16-inch here, and I'm running the iPad version, essentially, of the app. They did release the iPad version of their apps to the Mac App Store. I might know the person that was responsible for suggesting that and making that available. But you can search in here. Oh, my laptop's really chugging. You have the remote capability, so I can right here. I'm controlling my device, going to the different UIs and all that. If I was playing a movie, it would show me that here, transport controls and all that, notifications, and then a whole lot of other things you can do within your Kaleidescape system. I think, in my opinion, this is one of the best mobile apps available in home theaterdom for a device.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at. We got any more questions?
Yeah, I saw a few. Are there are there any 8K movies on K? I'm not aware of any 8K movies on any device. Yeah. There just really isn't any 8K content. I know some people say, well, there's some 8K videos on YouTube and stuff, but more often than not, they're, upscales or something, or somebody shot something, some random thing or whatever. But
yep.
No, there's none. I'm really not expecting to see 8K content from any kind of provider in any time of near future, other than maybe gaming or PCs. I think that we'll start to eventually see like Apple TV 8K, and it'll be like the Apple TV scaling it to 8K.
Yeah.
But like the content itself is an 8K. I mean, got a good majority of the 4K content we have is just upscales. So,
yeah, right.
So nothing there. I don't think their hardware would support it, even if it was available. So it'd probably be something that we'd see a new player for it if that ever comes to fruition.
There are some 4K and Atmos demos in the store. They work with Trinoff and put a few things up. So there's some neat immersive audio things that you can download and tinker with.
I haven't messed with the movie poster stuff.
Yeah, I'm assuming that he's talking about like having like a digital signage or something outside of the theater, and it shows the now playing.
I know it does work. That if you go online, there's people that have things that talk about how to do that. It'll show like the poster, how much time is left, and they have interfaced it with a Kaleidescape. I've just never done any of that. I always think it's cool, but it's something that I've never actually done. And then IMAX enhanced, no IMAX enhanced. They do support DTSX. There is content on there in DTSX, but nothing that's IMAX enhanced. So I think the IMAX enhanced movies do have a different DTS track than some of the ones that are not IMAX enhanced. There's no difference really in the video, but there is in the audio.
Yeah.
It's more on the playback side. Like, a lot of displays will say they're IMAX enhanced capable. That doesn't really mean anything. It's more of a marketing gimmick.
Yeah. On Disney Plus, the stuff that they bin is IMAX enhanced, has the
different aspect
taller
ratio.
aspect ratios. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the way they actually implemented that, because you can pick one or the other, as opposed to just being forced with the variable aspect. If you don't want that, you can actually watch the normal theatrical one. I wish like the discs that are coming out with the variable aspect ones would give you one or the other. Now for Kaleidescape, that's a good one. So there's only, I want to say, like maybe a handful of movies with variable aspect on Kaleidescape. They've normally shied away from that and just did the scope. I think the exceptions is obviously Top Gun Maverick. Was one of the first ones. Aquaman, I think, has a shifting aspect ratio on Kaleidescape. I don't know if there's any other ones
Yeah, I want to
or
say
no.
there's one or two more, but yeah,
Most
like
of like
the
the Nolan ones
yeah.
aren't. They're the original. And see, that's another thing. Like again, if you want to separate yourself, I would love to see like if you want to download Maverick, do you download the variable aspect or the scope?
Hmm.
If I want to download Aquaman, because some people don't want that. Like,
Yeah.
you and I as scope users, does it make sense to go from a widescreen presentation to this? That
Yeah,
was
that's
never
small.
the intention of anybody. So why in the
Yeah.
world would I want to do it? But maybe on my, if I had a 16:9 display, great,
Sure.
hey, no harm, no foul. It does, it opens up. Um, but I'd love to see where they offered, instead of just Blu-ray quality, HD quality, whatever, also get into the aspect stuff and things like that. They started doing that a little bit with director's cuts now too, like they
Hmm.
did the Spider-Man one recently and things like that and stuff. So
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer that one came out as a separate purchase and not just a variation
feels kind of like a
of the
cash
same
grab,
one. Yeah.
but I mean that's not Kaleidescape, that's the
Yeah,
studio. But
that's the studio,
And
right?
and the other thing is like I've never seen anything that like breaks down. Like they never released that to theaters or anything. So I have no idea. Like I keep seeing that. Like right now it's even on sale.
It
And I
was for
was like,
sale.
oh,
Yeah.
I like that movie, but is the extended version like 50 seconds more of content that I'm not even going to notice? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how director's cuts are. Some of them are
Yep.
like, you're like, oh wow, that's like a whole different movie, like Kingdom of Heaven and things like that. Like I didn't even like the original one, and the next one's a masterpiece, and
Mm.
some other ones, like remember in the 90s when it was just like the director's cut, like like the 90s was all about the steamy movies and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, the unrated version that gave you 2 seconds more that you blink and you miss it, but it
Yep.
made people want to go buy stuff. So like the Spider-Man one is 2 hours and 37 minutes. I want to see
I
No
think
Way
it.
Home.
Yeah, I
I,
bought it. I bought it
I don't
today on
even
sale. I
see.
think it is a little longer.
You see, in the Spider-Man group, it doesn't even show the other version. So I was going to see if 39 minutes Spider-Man. Oh, there it is. So it went from 2 hours and 28 minutes to 2 hours and 37. So it's 9 minutes. I don't know. Could be worth it.
Something in there. Yeah,
Whereas like Jurassic Park, I think they gave you both versions, didn't they? Like the new one, Dominion.
Most, yeah. Yes. Yep. They're both, it's one purchase and they're both there. And then I think I have that downloaded actually. I could probably.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been other ones like that. Like I kind of wish they would have done the Mad Max Black and Chrome version as it lists it as both, but they are two. Like if you go to Fury Road, it actually has it as two different. Like it's the same movie, but it is different.
Yeah, that
So
one is. Yeah.
yeah. So you have to buy both versions, even though it's listed under the same. It's not split out like the other one was and
Yep.
stuff.
Very much. It depends. Yeah. Jurassic World, Play Movie or Play Extended Edition. So you got them. Get them both.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one I think the extended version is looked at favorably.
Oh, is it? Because I have it. I watched the theatrical one and didn't care for it. And I was like, do I want to suffer?
I should try it again.
Through the other one?
Yep.
I do like on the main store collection, we didn't talk about, they have this special pricing thing. So you can go right to like whatever's on sale.
Mhm.
That's kind of nice that you can just go right to kind of their sale page and then you can sort it and say, I only want to see the stuff I don't own, and I only want to see stuff in, this quality or that quality. So I do like how they have those things where you can really sort it quickly and see, like, oh, they added this or added that or whatever. So,
well, cool. Any other thoughts?
No, at the end of the day, it's a great system. And like every other piece of electronics out there, there's stuff that, you'll find to complain about,
Mhm.
Overall, I think once you get in it, you find that you enjoy it. The interesting thing about K is it's like anything else. Once you get in it, you start taking it for granted because I'll use it and then I'll go back to, I'll go to a client's house and they want to look at some content and they load a disc and I forgot, like, oh my God, it's like the FBI warning. And then there's trailers 1 through 6 and then there's the menu. and like all that goes away, and you forget how bad it is to not have it
Yep.
until you get back in it. So, for everything I can complain about in it, I can also find a lot of things that I really like about it. It's
Yeah.
not perfect, but nothing in this industry is. I give feedback to them. I've seen them act on some of that feedback. Obviously, they've acted on stuff that you give them as well.
Mhm.
And that's nice to see. And I hope to continue to see that. I would like to see a little bit more innovation, in their interface, like we were talking about. Hey, make
Yeah.
make what shows in that thing on your main
Yeah.
page. I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't feel like they're big asks, but I think they would go a long way. So
Yeah. Yeah. I going around these last few months into summer, there was a lot of like Michigan theater meetups, and kind of I'm like the only one of the group that has one of these, or almost the only one, I guess. And yeah, flipping discs at guys' houses, trying scenes, or even doing like some more ripping content around the channel and trying to like help people understand what that's all about. I was starting to get into that a little more and thinking about it. And we did the live stream a couple weeks ago, really kind of debating the merits back and forth. But all of that really settled back in my mind that, yeah, like I like this. Like this is the solution for me. It's so simple, it's convenient, it's easy, the elegance. You get the quality. There's and anything that I want them to do is just is additive. Like there's not or augmentations, like you said, in some ways, like even maybe nitpicks or whatever. We'll see what's in store.
yeah, I
Things are
think I
still
think
happening.
again the biggest obstacle I think for is just the price point.
Yeah.
It's just it's a big ask up front. Once you're in the system, it's not so bad because the movies go on sale, or
Hmm.
whatever, unless you need to start adding storage. But I just wish that there was more access to it for uh, other people. Like I think that the more people that could get into the system, the more it's like anything else. Like there's a reason that prices on some things are lower than other things. It's because there's a wider market. So I think
Hmm.
that having a wider market, you could get more people into the infrastructure. Now you have more money to work on development and R&D and just your stability and things like that. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, they're going to sell them for what they want to sell them for. So
Right. Yep. They own their business model. So
yep. And maybe
Brandman's
we'll
yes.
see that change over time. Who knows?
Yeah. So most dealers charge MSRP. I'd say depends on the dealer. There
Yeah.
are discounts to be found. Yep. So don't just go to Best Buy or Magnolia and pay MSRP.
I
Work with
can tell
somebody.
you that if you are somebody that's, price shopping dealers and stuff, I know what things cost. I know what dealers pay for it. There's not, unlike most things that are pretty expensive, Kaleidescape doesn't run a really high margin model. So, when somebody says, "Hey, I can give it to you for, whatever discount they feel comfortable doing," just realize that in a lot of ways there is not a lot of markup on these products, which, some of this stuff I find surprising, but it's an expensive product. So even if you were getting discounts, I wouldn't expect it to be, a dramatic change where you're like, yeah, Best Buy is this much, but this other
Yeah.
guy, I can get it for a fraction of the cost and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're not getting half off. If you
no,
want to save money, if you really want to get in and you want to save, you gotta kind of roll the dice and maybe buy
in
used.
the used. Yeah.
Yep. There are systems up for sale on AVS Forum, but I would say if you're looking at a used one, go to Kscape Owners Forum. Jim and some of the other dealers there post systems on behalf of clients, or they'll have clients that might be upgrading or changing stuff out, and they'll specifically post, yeah, like the person selling this one, it's all legit. And now they've got 5-year warranties, so people that might be selling them, you might still be able to get some warranty on the back end of
Yeah, I think
a
their
used
warranty is
system.
transferable, isn't it? It's based on
I
when the
believe
system
so.
was built, as
Yeah.
opposed to just first owner and then you're done.
Right. Yeah.
So
Cool. Well, thanks so much. I think this was fun. So I think we really, the bookend of the of the year on Kaleidescape. Again, I really try to cover this on the channel because I love it. I've used it for a number of years, and I think it's an interesting topic. I don't think that many other channels kind of give it the whole due, all the elements of the platform, and I'll talk also about some of the areas for improvement as well as the things that are
I think
great.
some people think I'm a little hard on it online, and I think the only reason I'm hard on it is because I do like it so much.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's one of those things that when you really enjoy something, and there's the little things that you're like, God, if only these little things would just, propel it that much higher.
Yep.
I generally don't nag on things that I don't like, because at the end of the day, I just don't care.
Yeah.
But if I really like something and I just see, we're like, God, just that little bit of, this and this and this, it would go a long way, and just, again, cementing it as just like, yeah, this thing's awesome, and it's great. I really like mine. Like, again, once you can swallow that pill of that pricing, it's hard to argue, like the quality of what you're watching, the availability of stuff, how fast, I'm not going to the store. I'm not waiting for Amazon to drive a movie out to me and stuff.
Yep.
I want to watch something. I say, hey, let's watch this tonight. By the time I go get my drink and my popcorn and everything, it's usually downloaded. So, that there's something to be said to that. But
the entire store is functionally your library. I mean, you're $25 and 10 minutes away from anything. That's available,
including a lot of stuff. They are starting to do a lot more of that almost day and date. Like you saw, like Violent Night's already out, and that's still in theaters. Fableman's is already out, that's already in theaters and stuff like that. So that it's a nice system to have. It doesn't have everything, it's not perfect, but it's a nice system.
Cool. Well, if folks seeing this, if you have more questions after the fact, post them in the comments of the video. I'll be happy to answer. And I think from here, not sure if I'll stream next week, given Christmas week, but definitely into the new year. I kind of like this format of pulling something up and spending some time really deep diving on it. It worked really well when the new Apple TV came out. So I'm thinking maybe in the new year to do one of these with the Anthem gear, running through some Arc Genesis software and all that. And Kris, I think it'd be really cool to have you back and talk some calibration and maybe show off some Lumagen stuff and video processor things. And
I think that'd be fun. I think the Lumagen one would be interesting, just simply because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it can and can't do. That'd be nice. But calibration stuff. One more thing, like, I don't think we covered this now that I think about it. I was kind of looking through the comments here. Two real kind of, they weren't brought up, but it just flashed into my mind. Misconceptions about Kaleidescape. One of them that I think is a common misconception out there is that if Kaleidescape tomorrow said, we're no more, you now have nothing. And I think that's something that people talk about a lot when it comes to digital libraries. Like, hey, if iTunes decided all of a sudden that they don't have the contract agreement they want with Paramount, and they say, nope, no more Paramount movies in iTunes, now all your Paramount movies are gone. And that is a reality when you're talking about a streaming library, like the Voodoos and, iTunes of the world, because they don't download anymore. Kaleidescape, once you have downloaded it onto any of your devices, you own it. So if their servers shut down, the only thing that's going to prevent you from watching that movie is if your hard drive died or something like that. Now, you are in the reality of that, because if they decided to shut down their servers, all those movies that you have in the cloud, you don't have physically, where like my entire library is on my system at the moment. So if they shut down, because this is a system that is bought by people that have like yachts and things like that, where they don't have internet access. So they can just load their whole library onto there. And then, they have a local network, and they have like maybe a player in each room, and they can watch from that and stuff like that. So you only lose what you haven't downloaded. Again, if the hardware dies, the hard drives or whatever, and Kaleidescape was under, you're not going to get that movie back or whatever.
Yep.
But it isn't something that if they shut down, like all of a sudden, like, nope, sorry, you can't play that because there's some kind of internet key. You don't have to have it even connected to a network to work. It just looks at the Terra, as long as they're on a network together, which you don't need internet connection for. So that's one misconception I see out there quite a bit. The other one is, I don't know, was it 4 years ago, Kaleidescape went out of business for a weekend.
Yeah, I think
It
even
was
longer.
literally a weekend. It was from
Yeah.
Friday to Monday. And everybody's like, oh, you see, so what happens if Kaleidescape next month goes out of business and I've spent all this money? Kaleidescape as a business at that time was a very different company than it is now. When Kaleidescape had that issue back in the day, they were more of a, I'm trying to think of the word for this. Their system was based on, we have this vault and this player, you stick a disc in, it copies it to that vault or whatever, and then it's basically a way of just having a nice interface for your disc collection. Now, to do that, they had to copy their stuff to a drive so that it could skip certain things and do certain things and play faster. So they were breaking copyright encryption on the disc. And at the end of the day, the studios, yes, you had bought the disc or whatever, but those studios had no financial benefit to this system at all. It was basically a way of just, creating a catalog system of your discs, and you were paying a lot of money to just have a nice interface for your discs. But there was copy infringement going on because they were copying. So what they've gone to now is a digital marketplace. Yes, you can do disc to digital. Yes, you can still get stuff from a vault and have a disc in there where it plays through, but they are not doing anything like they were doing before, where like they're breaking encryption and the studios have no benefit of this system. Now, most of the movies are being supplied directly by the studio. The studio is making money off of you purchasing it, things like that. They've basically moved from, hey, we're going to work on your, video library, to, hey, we are a digital marketplace and you are buying it from the studios. So the studios just look at it as another revenue source, not something where you're circumventing the protection of their devices or their content. So it's a very different, they were facing, legal action and things over stuff like that. Just like, there's companies like, for instance, the PD just recently had to stop selling their vault here in the US because it was breaking encryption so that you could, load movies onto their player easily and stuff like that. So they can't sell that. So that is something where somebody came after them and said, hey, you can't do that. Kaleidescape doesn't have that anymore. So the idea that they're just going to drop out of business. Now, obviously they're a business. At the end of the day, I don't know, like what their assets are and stuff. Any business at any time could go out of business for whatever reason. But the reasons that drove those things before really aren't there. So it's not something that like I go to bed at night worrying about, like I might have worried about with their older system. So
yeah. Some people I think are just anti, digital ownership or whatever. I've been over that for a long time. Almost every piece of media that I own is no longer physical, from books to video games to movies and music and all that. So to me, having a large library of digital content, if circumstances conspired to make that go away, I'll just go over to iTunes, I guess. But I was trying to pull it up here.
Oh, go ahead.
I was
The
trying
other
to pull
thing
up
with
here.
this is not. Oh, go ahead.
I was trying to pull up here while you were talking, because I have a couple of films in my library that are not for sale in the store anymore. And I kind of wanted to prove it. I can't find them though, because the store only lets me shuffle, and it's not shuffling them in. But the Leica animation studios, the Box Trolls, Paranorman, there's a couple of movies that they've been up and down, up and then have been down again for sale in the store because of rights holdings. The same thing happened on iTunes.
Those originally were released by Universal Focus Films, so they were a Universal asset, and now they're owned by is it Arrow? I think it's like a specialty company. In fact, I just looked at that today because those were released in 4K like a week ago.
Yeah.
Now the rights holder is Shout Factory. So Shout Factory owns the rights to those, as opposed to where they were previously released by Universal. We saw the same thing with like all the Studio Ghibli. Like for a long time, Disney was the one that was releasing them, had the content stuff, and now they're owned by G Kids or something, which is like a subsidiary of somebody else. And stuff like that. So that is always that could be like Pulp Fiction. I think was the same way. Like they used to have it on the marketplace under Lionsgate, and then Lionsgate lost it, so it was pulled from the marketplace, and now it's back on the marketplace under Paramount. So
but when stuff goes away in the store, You keep
Yeah.
it. Yep, exactly. So
Yeah.
I've, even though you can't buy it, I've got the box trolls in my library and I can download it and watch it. But I hope all 4 of those hit as they're coming in 4K in K-Hash Shout Factory. So I hope they come. Sorry, what was the other?
Yeah, the other one I see that's another one is, you'll get I guess you were talking about kind of the haters with digital stuff, and I see the haters that sit there and talk about like, well, why would I buy this? I can do all this with Plex and things like that. And in all honesty, you can't, because with any kind of Plex kind of base system, you're limited to what content is available. So do you have it on disk? Is it even available on disk? And finding those things like that. Now I realize people can rip things from the internet. We live in the, like so many people just download stuff. But even that, most of those downloads are going to be based on some stream capture or something like that. So the content, isn't going to be quite the same as what you would get. And then, again, what's your time worth? And,
Yes.
is your interface really as slick as you think it is? And then, there's always things like that. This system isn't designed to go after the people that want to spend that kind of time to just literally rip their thing. This is for people that are like, you know what, I just want to sit down in the evening and watch whatever I want to watch and not have to worry about like, okay, I got to get this in, and I got to set up something and make it do this, and then, and all that stuff like that. And then, oh, I have Plex. Yeah, but it won't play right on my Apple TV. I have to have an NVIDIA Shield for that because it won't do the audio
Yep.
right. Or, the metadata. Yeah, there's, the list goes on and on. This is for people that just want the convenience of having a great system with good quality that they just sit back and push play.
Yep.
So,
yeah, it's like time and patience is what led me out of that to this to begin with. And after again ripping stuff again for the channel and service of making content and sharing the process and the details of all that, I feel reinvigorated to my commitment to want to use this thing versus spend time I don't have, limited enough as it is, messing around with setting stuff up, and versus just exactly that. Buy it, download it, watch it, and move on.
Yeah, there was one last question. Can you use 2 different rooms at the same time or locations? I believe you can.
Yeah, so a Terra will serve multiple players
5?
simultaneously. Yeah, I think the big Terra and the compact have different counts. I think the big one might be 5, and I want to say the little one might be a little bit less than that, but it's definitely more than one.
So I know with the Strato S, it can only do 2. But I think with the compact Terras, I think they can do up to 4.
Okay.
At one time. I'm sure they say something about that on their website, but yes. So you could have like, your Terras in a closet somewhere, and then have a bunch of little Strato Cs throughout the house. So yeah, you can do that and have multiple things playing.
It's 5 and 10. So the compact Terra is 5. The 4-drive Terra is 10. And for reference, the 88 terabyte model is spec'd at 1,500 4K movies. So yeah, I could get away with one of them for a while.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do to circumvent this is I have 2 zones. I've got my living room zone and of course the theater. For me, the K really factors in the theater. It's basically the main. If it's available on Kaleidescape, we watch it on Kaleidescape. If not, then we'll go to iTunes or a streaming service or whatever it might be. So when it comes to watching movies in here, but I still like being able to access it in the living room. Not enough that I'm going to drop another $4,000 on a second Strato. So I just do like a Zone 2 matrix. So my preamp that the Kaleidescape goes into that runs the theater, HDMI Zone 2 out to the living room TV, and I just matrix it that way. So on the odd occasion that I do want to pull something up in the living room, that allows me to do that. So you can do some video distribution, some video switching with the Strato to make that viable. So pretty sweet. We got a super chat here, Bobby Digital. Definitely get to this before we wrap up. So
yikes. Totally unrelated. Hey, Kris is on here. Let's ask him a question. MadVR, Envy versus Lumagen. I can't even tell you how many times I answer this question every week. So
That's a
I will
religious
put
war,
out.
huh?
It really is, and I'll put out, right off the bat. Obviously, I am an authorized Lumagen dealer, so you can take that as whatever bias you want. I actually reached out to MadVR when they first announced the product and asked to be a dealer, and I have not become a dealer, and it's mainly because I'm not a local installer. I work all across the country, and they want MadVR is very specific about if you're a dealer, you can only sell to your specific network, like your area. So they're trying to control that as opposed to like, hey, I can sell to anybody and do everything, or whatever. Um, I find I have very little experience with the Envy. Again, I haven't really been able to get hold of the product. They haven't sent me one or anything to look at. But I have a lot of people, calibrators, installers, people that are friends that own them, things like that. I find that the two products are more similar than dissimilar. Obviously, the MV is based on a big PC. It's a very big piece of equipment, instead where the Lumagen is based on, a hard, FPGA based design, smaller form factor. But in terms of video processing, like what I think just the normal person's going to see, I think that they're probably more similar than dissimilar. You'll find circumstances where an NV might perform a little better with one task, where a Lumagen might perform a little better with another task. There's also functionality differences, like the NV adds a lot of latency to video. So if you're using any kind of gaming system, you really can't use it unless you bypass it, where the Lumagen, you can use it for gaming systems. So that becomes important to certain people. The NV has two different levels of theirs, where the Lumagen, the processing is the same across their entire product line. It's just how many inputs and outputs you're going to use, because it is a switching device. As far as features outside of that I'm aware of, the Envy on the Extreme has the ability to do barrel distortion correction for people with a scope screen. Lumagen can't do that. Outside of that, I'm not really aware of any features currently that are different between the two. The Envy's gone to 2.1. I think you can do a 2.1 HDMI output, but that doesn't matter because they don't use gaming systems, which are really the only things that take advantage of that. So I don't see the point there. I guess if it was 8K scaling, but again, at that level, I don't really think it matters. I have seen some limitations on the calibration side. I was actually called out to do a MadVR job recently, and for some reason, they're not working with CalMan, which tends to be the most used calibration stuff, at least that I know of in the industry. And they're having some issues with that, where I don't have that problem with Lumagen. But you probably can't go wrong either way. The biggest thing I have, and again, a lot of the people I know out in the field, calibrators and different guys that I've talked to, have said kind of the same thing. They're more similar than dissimilar, but you're going to pay quite a bit more for an NV than a Lumagen. So that would be something to consider. It's just I don't really see why I would need to spend that much money for something that's not going to really do anything that much different. And then the other thing that, I said as soon as they announced that, we really don't know, is Lumagen's been in this industry for 20 years. They have a really good reputation for product support. They're literally upgrading all the time. I mean, the Radiance Pro has been on this market now for 6-7 years, and they're still putting out free updates with new features and enhancements and everything like that. And their products have been well supported for over 2 decades. And MadVR, this is their very first hardware product. So I don't know how their support, their features, how long are they going to be? The video processors are an extremely niche market. There's not a lot of market for them. And, Lumagen's been around when Ferrugia, Snell and Wilcox, DVDO, all these different companies that put out video processors that were here one year, gone next year, 2 years later, 3 years later, where Lumagen has been around for a long time. So, and they've shown, a really good support and longevity of their products. So yes, I'm a dealer. So yes, I probably have some bias in that, but at the same time, for up until last year, they were the only ones, and I was using them then, and so were my clients. There's things about MadVR that are intriguing, and I hope to see them succeed in the market. Anytime that there's just only one product in a market doesn't really help anybody. I like competition. It drives each one to innovate. But at the end of the day, I don't have really a preference. I don't see. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, cool. Well, come on back in the new year. We'll put that Lumagen deep dive live stream
Yeah,
together.
sure.
Cover it then. All right, one thing I just wanted to hit here before we close up as well, Pavel, there's a couple questions about this because this has been some of the thing I've been fiddling around with on the channel lately with videos that we figured out the speaker cable over the Romex lately. So I have some buzzing in the speakers in my living room, and I've done a whole bunch of stuff. I think I've had 3 separate videos about troubleshooting and trying all these little devices to plug in and cables and whatever. Nothing's gotten rid of them, but stay tuned, folks, for that one over the Christmas break here. I think I'm finally just going to bite the bullet and take one of those speakers out of the living room, bring it down to the rack here on a separate speaker wire connection, and I predict no buzz, which is going to both, I think, make me happy and make me cry, because it means until I overhaul my entire setup, the buzzing will persist. Because I think my speaker wire run between my rack and my living room is picking up some interference there. Cool. Let's call it. So thanks so much, everybody, for coming out. Thanks for the questions. Thanks, Bobby, for the super chat. This has been fun. I think this comment here is kind of funny. So much Kaleidescape content. Yeah, we kind of had 3 weeks or two live streams in 3 weeks has been Kaleidescape focused. We'll bring something new in the new year, I promise. Again, we'll talk some video processors. We'll talk some more gaming. We'll do the Anthem stuff. I got more topics. But I wanted to do this one, and I wanted to do it before the end of the year. So these 2 kind of long Kaleidescape focused streams ended up maybe a little closer together than they maybe should have been, but so be it. Nobody else is covering Kaleidescape in the same way that Techthusiasm does. So,
Yeah.
All right. Any parting words?
No, thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it, and look forward to doing some more of these with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. Please hit the like button on the way out. Leave some comments, some thanks. If you have additional questions, put them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Coming back for more home theater discussion and fun.
Thanks, everybody.